Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. It is Thursday, August 28th, and Nvidia crushed earnings. Folks, this was one of those quarters where it's just like, my goodness, this company is actually operating while we are all alive. We are all here to see it. The stock did not react in a way that would get, the entire world excited, going up 10%, but the stock is also worth 4.3 trillion, so you don't expect that big of a move. However, you are getting some pre-market action down from 175 to 180, which is a nice move as we get into it, because not only do we have some breaking news on Nvidia that we'll talk about outside of the quarter, we have every single Wall Street analyst pretty much saying this quarter was phenomenal. We can't find the red flag, and we are upgrading the stock. I mean, you had people that had $130 price targets on Wall Street upgraded today to $195. So we're going to talk a lot about Nvidia as we get into it for the first topic of the day. I mean, I'm struggling to find the bear case or struggling to find the red flag right here. Like you can tell, I'm very excited about it because not only do I have a large Nvidia position, I know a lot of people have a large Nvidia position, but this quarter really was a phenomenal quarter. And people can nitpick and find the very small thing that they can get upset about, which we'll address what people on Twitter seem to be nitpicking, that I think people are just jealous of Nvidia or something. Like I feel like Jose is 1000% correct. Someone wants to be the Michael Burry of AI and call the top. And I think people are trying way too hard, because it's really hard to call the top. It's really hard to say when semiconductors and the cyclicality of it all tops out. It's really easy to look at the numbers and just be like, holy crap, Nvidia crushed it. Nvidia absolutely crushed it. And the other reason it's important for Nvidia to crush it, even if you don't own Nvidia, is because Nvidia is 8% of the S&P 500. Nvidia is the market. Now, that doesn't mean if Nvidia has a bad quarter that the market completely collapses, but it does mean if this entire AI tailwind is not real anymore, or if this entire AI tailwind starts to take a massive pause, you're going to see a lot of money exit the stock market, or at least exit a lot of the high-flying stocks that all of us care about, especially the Mag 7, because the optimism from investors that has been sustained for the past basically 3.5 years will start to die out. That doesn't mean the stock market dies out or anything. It just means the sort of greatest time to be investor for the next 5-10 years thesis stops playing out. And so I was curious, could Nvidia still put up the numbers? And more importantly, could they put up the guidance to get us to continue to believe that AI is not slowing down? And not only did they put up the numbers this quarter, they put up the guidance for next quarter, and they gave us certain surprises, like little Easter eggs that we could expect going into 2026, that if they play out the way Jensen has kind of been hinting they might play out, this is going to be a phenomenal AI bull market over the next 5 years, led by Nvidia. No, it won't be growing 50-70% for the next 5 years, but it will be growing upwards of 25%. And that's kind of all they need to do to continue to sustain this momentum, which is very, very exciting. So good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here. We're going to get into Nvidia. We also have some Tesla news. Europe sales, surprise, surprise, are down. And that likely has not changed over the past couple of months. Tesla, is that down in the pre-market? Tesla's down a little bit. That's kind of flat. So that one not affecting Tesla too much. S&P 500 basically at all-time highs. Nvidia, as you can see, is recovering in the pre-markets. I would not be surprised, especially based on the news that came out 5 minutes before I went live, if Nvidia gaps up and makes all-time highs. Now, I'm not saying it has to happen, but that news is pretty damn bullish, and it was kind of the only thing you could say that was wrong with the quarter. That could change. And so we're going to see how the market opens up with Nvidia. You got the S&P 500 right here at 647, and that is green as well. Okay, so we also have a bunch of macro data around GDP and jobs claims. So let me real quickly do the macro data with GDP and jobs claims, and then we'll get straight into Nvidia. 229 versus 231 on the jobless claims, which is good. So the market expected 229,000 or 231,000 people to file for unemployment. That came in at 229,000. Not bad. Means that the economy is not necessarily, or the labor market is not necessarily that weak. I don't think we need the horrific labor market reports to get Powell to pivot and give us a cut, because he already pivoted and said that we are going to cut, basically, right? He didn't explicitly say that, but basically. So it looks like the labor market is not doing amazing, but it's not doing horrible in terms of jobs claims. This number was actually very exciting. U.S. Q2 GDP growth came in at 3.3% versus 3.1%. expected. Now, there are multiple revisions done on this statistic until we get the final number. So this was the first revision. Last time we got this number, it came in at 3%. Street thought it would go up to 3.1. It came in at 3.3, led by stronger consumer and household spending. And it actually, the BLS said it could have been even higher, except exports were a little bit lower. Otherwise, it would have been upwards of 3.4 to 3.5%. So GDP growth is incredible. The only thing you have to kind of have the nuance on is, does this mean inflation continues to persist, right? And we're going to have to wait till CPI, PPI. I think we get core PCE tomorrow, if I'm not wrong. So, maybe inflation does inch up a little bit like it did on PPI, but the actual state of the economy, by the way, we had a ton of earnings this morning. We had Best Buy, Bath and Body Works, Dollar General, Dick's. We had a ton of these retailers. All of them double beat. Like literally all of them. All of their stocks are not up, but all of them double beat. So when we talk about the retailers, we had Walmart, Target, and Lowe's last week. Those were the major retailers, and Home Depot. The retailers this week that aren't as big as a Walmart still had some pretty good earnings. And so we'll talk about that. But it's leading me to believe U.S. GDP growth in general is going to sustain itself at 3%. It kind of has to be at 3.3 to 3.5 over the next decade to deal with the deficit spending. But if we can do that in the world of AI and robotics, then that should be a good thing for the broader economy. So that's what we got in terms of some of the macro data. Let's get into Nvidia. And let's talk about that quarter because I thought it was incredible. I would like anyone who saw the quarter or has any thoughts on the quarter to put their comments in the chat. And what do you think? Was it good? Was it bad? Was there massive red flags? Or is there, something that people should be paying attention to that you think people aren't paying attention to? Because I'm seeing a quarter that is just phenomenal across the board. 46.7 billion in revenues, beat estimates, up 56% year over year. 26.4 billion in net income, again, beating estimates year over year. That's up 59%. 72% gross margins. That's up 20% quarter over quarter. That actually took a little bit of a hit last quarter. That's back up. 60 billion in buybacks. 54 billion revenue guide for Q3. Now, the most exciting thing about this quarter is that Nvidia did not include China sales for the H20 in guidance. They said, Colette, the CFO, you can expect, and this was actually different than AMD. AMD said nothing about this. Nvidia probably has more demand for their chips, which is why they were able to give at least these baseline numbers. You can expect 2 to 5 billion in increased revenue guide, meaning 56 to 59 billion for Q3, if the export controls go away and we're able to sell into China, which means theoretically, let's give them 57, 56 billion. Nvidia could put up in Q3, which would massively beat even the whisper numbers that the street was thinking about. The street numbers were at 55. They came in at 53.5, aka 54. Now it's just a question of, hey, can they get to 56, 57? This is unprecedented growth. We have never seen this type of growth before. That obviously is not slowing down. The other thing that Jensen said, which is really important, and that leads to the breaking news that happened right before I went live. This is why Nvidia is gapping up into the 180s right now. Nvidia is in talks with the US to sell its Blackwell AI chip to China. And it's reportedly willing to give the US a cut of the Blackwell China sales, according to Fox. Last night, Jensen said not only is China a 50 billion per year business of revenue, he said that multiple times in the past. Last night, he actually said he thinks that can grow 50% year over year because of how rampant the demand is in China. China is the largest consumer of these chips outside of the United States and the hyperscalers in the United States. So why is this important? Remember Lutnick made that comment last week saying we want to get China addicted to our chips. And then the Chinese government got really upset about that and said, okay, we're just not going to buy the H20 anymore. And they put out a bunch of reasons why the H20 is not safe for the environment and all this like random excuses to avoid buying the H20. Well, I mean, I think Trump has realized, all right, they don't want the H20 and, we want their rare earth magnets and rare earth minerals. So at some point we're gonna have to do something. And, Trump did say 3 weeks ago, he's in talks with Jensen to try to get the U.S. to sell Blackwell in a more degraded way. Now, I don't know if it's going to be the lesser version of Blackwell or the best version of Blackwell. But the point is, if the U.S. gets 15% of all those sales, which is what Trump really wants, I think there's a world in which Trump says, all right, you can sell the best version of Blackwell, or at least a decent version of Blackwell that the Chinese government would care about. Because, look, the Chinese say they don't want the H20. They definitely want Blackwell. They know that Huawei or whatever other company in China that's trying to compete with Nvidia has nothing close to what Blackwell has. So if you get Blackwell into China and we get that revenue and that starts to grow at 50% along with the United States growing at 50%. I mean, now I don't know if the US is going to grow next year at 50%, but this is what Jensen said when someone asked him, hey, you said China could grow at 50%. Like, could that grow 50% for the entire business? And the street guide for next year is 29%. So Jensen kind of sidestepped the question. He was like, like things are going very well. And I don't think that means they're going to grow 50% next year, but I think could they grow better than 29%? Yes. And that could dramatically change the earnings estimates because right now the street, again, has them at 29% year over year, which 30% growth at their scale is still incredible. But if they could do 40% growth, even if it's not 70%, that's amazing, which is why NVIDIA's green right now in the pre-markets, CoreWeave is green, and the entire street has raised their targets. JP Morgan, 170 to 215. Rosenblatt, 200 to 215. Benchmark, 190 to 220. B of A, 220 to 235. Citi, 170 to 215. Jefferies, 200 to 205. KeyBank, 215 to 230. DA Davidson, they had them at 135. Now 195. Truist, 210 to 228. If you hear any mainstream bearishness on this quarter, or you're on Twitter and you see these random faceless accounts that sell Discord subscriptions for $500 a month trying to pump fear into the world about NVIDIA, you just got to remember it's not reality. It's really not reality. And a lot of these, like one person under my post was like, this is the most delusional post ever about NVIDIA's bull case. And I was like, okay, so tell me, like, what is delusional about it? Why is, what is wrong with the quarter? And then you just don't get a response. And so it's like, you just have to condition yourself to realize like these people are not going to respond to you because they don't have a response. There's no argument. They can't actually fight with the numbers, and the numbers are the numbers, right? We're being pretty objective here about the numbers. That's not to say everything's perfect, but to say this is a bubble, as many are claiming right now, I mean, I don't know. Doesn't seem like that is the case. So as a result, I think this was an exceptional quarter. It was a quarter that definitely deserves a premium. Now, look, my price target this year, I said this many times, was 180. So I'm not complaining that we're at 180. Would I like it to go to 200? Of course. But more importantly, I just don't want it to go back down to like 160, 150 because I don't think it deserves that. NVIDIA right here, 181.28% from going green in the pre-market. But if these estimates get increased, then yeah, NVIDIA is probably going higher than 180. And as a result, it's going to be incredible to see. And that's helping the entire market. Tesla's green, Robinhood's green, Palantir's green, S&P's green. We'll talk more about BMNR. I have some new information on why BMNR took a 7% hit yesterday, but all of high beta took a pretty big hit yesterday. Reddit's green, Amazon's green, Meta's green. I mean, pretty much across the entire board, you're green as the street recognizes how strong this quarter was. Let's hear a little bit from Jensen because he had some things to say yesterday. Here's his first thing that he was saying around the Chinese market.
A little bit to the side and asking how you would characterize underlying data center demand ex-China right now.
Incredible. We had a record quarter without China, and we just guided another record quarter without China. And so the fundamentals are this. One, we're in the second generation of our Blackwell architecture. Blackwell is revolutionary. It's got this new NVLink 72 rack scale computer. The entire rack is one computer, not a whole bunch of computer nodes connected together, but it's one connected supercomputer. And it came just in time because of this agentic AI technology that has emerged in the last year or so, which causes the AI to be able to think. It can think, it could do a plan, it could reason, does research, use tools. It could, use a web browser. It could use Excel. It could use SAP. It could use ServiceNow. And it could use all of these tools to solve problems, work with other agents, for example. So the amount of computation has gone through the roof. And meanwhile, all of these AI native companies are coming up with all these exciting new applications. At NVIDIA, we use Cursor. It's our AI programmer. Across the entire company, everybody's using Cursor. The amount of code that we're generating and checking in is just incredible. Our productivity's gone through the roof. And so OpenAI, as you know, had $1 billion month. It's incredible growth. If you look at the AI native companies, last year, they did $2 billion altogether. The first year of AI revenues. The second year of AI revenues, $20 billion, 10-fold increase in 1 year. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. I see AI opportunities, obviously, across all of the clouds and enterprise and industrial applications and robotics and self-driving cars. I mean, just digital biology and drug discovery. We just see that just AI is just deploying everywhere.
So from Jensen's perspective, he's like, I don't have anything to be scared about in regards to our growth and our demand, and we have the numbers to back it up. Not to mention, they also have the gross margins that are starting to continue to back that up as well. You know, the street did not see any gross margin erosion. They thought it would come in at 73 to 74. We came in at 73.4, which is not too bad. Not too bad at all. So you got the margins and the bottom line that are doing good, and you have the top line growth that is also doing strong. What are the bear cases? What are the arguments that people are scared about? The number one thing I've heard outside of just like AI is a bubble without the warrant for AI being a bubble is concentration risk. So the largest argument here is that there are two customers that accounted for about 25% of full revenues. This is the exact quote right here that they put in the 8K. Three direct customers accounted for 23% of accounts receivable as of July 2025. Two direct customers accounted for 17 and 16% of our accounts receivable for January 26, 2025. And so, you know, the one argument right here is that, hey, like if those two customers or those three customers stop spending, then you're going to have some issues when it comes to Nvidia. And that really begs the question, do you believe in this AI revolution? Because let's assume that's Microsoft and that's Amazon, or that's Microsoft and Meta, which most likely it's probably all three of those. And this is a point that Steve's been making on the channel for a long time. They're in sort of a catch-22. They can't stop spending if the other one doesn't stop spending. So if Meta is going to keep spending as much as Meta is spending, Amazon has to keep spending, or else Amazon's going to fall behind, because there is no world in which AWS is like, well, we've built out all the chips that we need and we don't need the next generation of chips. We're okay with Blackwell. And then Meta, Google, and Microsoft are buying that next generation of chips. Amazon's going to fall behind. So all of them together have to come to the conclusion that these chips are not worth buying anymore, that we don't need to buy those chips, which then begs sort of the final question in this syllogism. Do you think in the next year, 2 years, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Meta, et cetera, all say AI is done, we don't need the chips anymore, we don't need to upgrade to the latest model or to upgrade to the latest GPUs to train the latest models, our AI workloads are built in, we have enough data centers, and we're good to go? I think that's very unlikely. Is that possible? Sure. Is it likely to happen? I just don't think so based on what we read. Now, maybe we get new information. Maybe AI turns out to be not useful at all in any of our lives, even though, again, every single vertical that's expanding in regards to AI and productivity seems to be offering more to the broader marketplace of ideas and through productivity and margin enhancements. So it seems like that's unlikely to happen. I mean, there's a reason Zucks is paying so much money for talent. And one of his pitches to all this talent is, hey, we have all the infrastructure and GPUs, and we will always have whatever you need to try out your new ideas because of the data centers that we're building. I mean, Zucks is literally starting a $50 billion data center in Louisiana, the size of Manhattan. So from that perspective, it's just hard to imagine concentration risk is the thing that brings Nvidia down, along with the fact that they are diversifying. Sovereign revenue came in at 20 billion this quarter, and it's growing 100% year over year. And then obviously the hyperscalers are continuing to spend at aggressive levels. We saw all four of them increase their CapEx guidance for fiscal year 2026. And it doesn't look like that's slowing down anytime soon. The energy crisis we're having in this country, I mean, the amount of data centers that are being built to figure out how these companies will be able to train their models. Google literally is taking a stake in Bitcoin miners to be able to get more energy. IREN, which was a stock that was dead this year, went from 11 to 22 because it's catching a bid. I think they have earnings, by the way, after the bell, because of the AI data center energy demand. CoreWeave is going to spend 12 billion in Q3 and Q4 just on data centers. It's just, it's hard to imagine. CoreWeave right here up 6%, that all of this is a bubble and it's going away anytime soon. And so if it is a bubble, and when I mean bubble, if it is something that's eventually going to decline, I think it will decline on Nvidia's terms. And I think that will happen over the coming years. I don't think that's happening overnight. And you got people, you know, getting so bearish as if that's going to happen overnight. It's like, that's just not the case. And the only way that's the case is if these numbers that they're giving us for guidance don't happen. But Nvidia has consistently beat and raised guidance for the past 7 quarters because they know that they have more demand that they can even handle. I mean, Nvidia, Jensen literally said last night, China growth would be even more. They would guide even more than 5 billion for China. They just don't have the supply to be able to actually service that amount of companies. And then obviously geopolitically, they need the go ahead from Trump to be able to sell into China. So we're gonna have to see. We're gonna have to see, but it does feel like this is not stopping anytime soon. Now, maybe it does stop, and when it does stop, everyone's going to be, you know, realizing, okay, this is stopping. But there's going to need to be a lot more data for us to say. Like Sam Altman's going to not have to want to say we need to 100x our GPUs one day. You know, like 2 weeks ago, Sam Altman tweeted, "I need to 100x our GPUs." if he comes out and says, we think we're good, we don't need any more, yeah, there you go. That's some qualitative evidence that, all right, that's demand slowing down. Everything I've seen, and I think everything you guys have seen, is pointing towards demand that's not slowing down this easily. This was a tweet that I found last night that I thought was very interesting. This is someone who is an NVIDIA certified employee. Well, not an employee, but he's NVIDIA certified, and he built data centers for the past 20 years. So he doesn't work at NVIDIA, but he works at a lot of companies that build data centers with NVIDIA GPUs. He says we're in the very early stages of saturation. There are roughly 5 to 7 million GPUs deployed presently. 2022 November marked the ChatGPT kickstart moment, much like the Netscape IPO in 1995. For those that don't know Netscape, it was the first browser that went public in 1995. It was kind of the precursor to, well, it was the entry to the modern internet, but it was the precursor to Chrome and Safari and all those other browsers. Estimates have us at moderate saturation near 30 million GPUs deployed. That takes us to 2027 or 2028. Sam Altman proclaims AGI will need 100 million GPUs deployed with production rates, CapEx, and other constraints. That takes us to 2030 and 2032. We're still early in this 5-year initial bull run. Peak analog in comparison to 1995 to 2000 is 2022 to the summer of 2027, which is also very similar to what Mr. Jensen said, which is that he expects 600 billion of CapEx by the end of this year, which would then essentially get to what he said is 3 to 4 trillion of CapEx by the end of the decade, which would be 2030. I mean, if he's right about that, and that's how this ends up playing out, then this is going to be a phenomenal bull run over the next 5 years, and we are going to see revenue growth and earnings growth from the likes we've never seen before. This is a chart right here kind of just showing how incredible this is, and I think the street's likely going to respect it. Now, the other one little red flag right here is, by the way, Victoria's Secret, they also crushed it, regardless of tariffs. They're up 8%. We'll talk about those earnings as well. The other one little red flag that people are pointing to is, well, data centers was a miss. and the miss that people are concerned about is that data centers was supposed to come in at 41.5 billion. It came in at 41.1 billion. And so as a result of that, you've got people that are upset. Well, look, data centers missed. And I'm like, okay, because if that's how you're going to frame this quarter, then you can frame the quarter in that way. The thing that I think people are missing on that is that the reason data centers missed is because of China. So it came in at 41.1 versus 41.4. That's a 0.4% miss. If they had the China revenues, that would have not only beat, that would have really beat, but they don't have the China revenues, but they guided for getting an extra 2 to 5 billion in China revenues next quarter, which means data centers is going to get back to accelerated quarter over quarter growth without these like tiny inconsequential misses, but they need China. And that's something I think investors are easily able to overlook, not only because 0.4% is like not something to get worked up about, but because we know that China revenues have been politically dismantled from Nvidia's earnings. When that comes back in, then that's not going to be something that I think people have to worry about. So I don't know, dude. I don't see the red flags. If someone has it, let me know. Our boy Steve got into his first Twitter fight last night. He's growing up in front of us. He called me last night. So I posted in one of my tweets, I don't know why Costco has a higher multiple than Nvidia. And then our boy Joseph Carlson quote tweeted me, and he said, and we have respect for each other. So Joseph and I go back and forth in a very respectful way. He said, hey, I disagree. Costco deserves to have a higher multiple than Nvidia. You guys can read the tweet if you want, but essentially his argument was Costco's business is more predictable. It's more stable. Nvidia is more cyclical with peaks and troughs. Therefore, Costco deserves a higher multiple because it's more predictable and it's like it's more of a legacy business that's not going to go out of business anytime soon. And then our boy Steve, the Costco comparison gets him upset. He calls me and he's like, I'm about to demolish this guy. And I was like, Steve, calm down. He's like, I'm about to demolish this guy. And so he writes up a whole Seeking Alpha article getting into it. I'll link it right here. You guys can read it. At its core, I'm not going to read the whole thing because there's a lot of numbers, but at its core, one thing that Steve said that I completely agree with, and then him and Joseph went back and forth in the comments, and they tried to come to a conclusion about this. Joseph obviously still doesn't agree with him. Joseph's argument is Costco's a legacy business and it's more predictable. Nvidia's cyclical. You never know when it's going to die out. You never know when it's going to top. It's semiconductor cyclicality, all that stuff. Steve brought up one of the best points that I've never thought about in this comparison. And when you hear it, it's hard to rationalize the Costco case, at least from my perspective. Steve was like, wait a second. Amazon is also a subscription business with Prime. I think one could argue Amazon Prime is unbelievably more valuable than Costco's memberships. Amazon has way better margins than Costco due to AWS, and Amazon is growing 4 times faster than Costco. By the way, Nvidia is growing 25 times faster, and Nvidia has 50 times better margins than Costco. So if the argument is Costco is predictable, Nvidia is not predictable, therefore it deserves a multiple. And I'm not saying Costco doesn't deserve a multiple. There's a lot of Costco diamond hands shareholders that are never going to sell, therefore that multiple will increase. I'm just saying it doesn't deserve a higher multiple than Nvidia. Joseph's argument is, well, Costco's more predictable. Steve's argument is like, wait a second, well, Amazon's the same business as Costco from a retail e-commerce membership perspective. Why does Costco have a higher multiple than Amazon? Because if the only thing you're concerned about is the lack of cyclicality and the membership business, which is like juicy subscription revenue that's never going away, Amazon has that. It's way better than Costco, way more valuable than Costco, better margins than Costco. Why does Costco still get a higher multiple than Amazon? It doesn't make a lot of sense, right? If the only reason you're saying, hey, Amit, Costco's 2% margins and 5% revenue growth deserves a 20x multiple higher than Nvidia's 56% margins and 54% revenue growth because of their legacy subscription business that is not going anywhere. Well, Amazon has the exact same business. It's way better. Why does Costco get a higher multiple than Amazon? And so I think the argument kind of falls apart right there. Maybe there's a counter argument to that, but yeah, they did go back and forth, and you guys can read it if you want. But in general, I just don't think it's easy to defend a lot of other companies getting a higher multiple than Nvidia, because this was one of those quarters that showed you that it's not slowing down, even if the stock is not going to the moon. So that's what we got on Nvidia. Nick says Amazon is going to be the most valuable company in the world. Just give it a Costco multiple. You know, a lot of people do think Amazon, eventually Nvidia will not be able to grow at these rates anymore. And then maybe Amazon, which is a lot more sustainable, ends up becoming the most valuable company. But right now it's Nvidia's world. Right now it's Nvidia's world, and it looks like they are winning. Dougie, thank you for the gifted 5 memberships. Appreciate it, Dougie. Stephen Lyons, thank you for the $5 super chat. Hood is doing the 1% match, just initiated the account transfer. Hood's actually doing a 2% match as well. They're doing 1% on your margin. So if you have $100,000 more in the margin balance, they're giving an extra 1% on that. So the second drop for Hood Gold month was 2% matches. So 2% is back. If you are in Schwab or Fidelity, and you got $3 million and you want 60,000 just to come over to Hood, maybe join Robinhood. But I had a bunch of people text me yesterday saying they are coming over to Robinhood. One person in particular, I did the screenshot of it right here, just deposited $2 million plus margin to my Hood. I'm getting the match, and I'm excited. Nick said, I just moved my 401k. Hood always looking good up. Yeah, dude. Q3 is going to crush, bro. Q3. Okay, so that gets us into BMNR and what happened yesterday with the high beta stock. So let's get into it. First of all, on BMNR, why did it sell off yesterday? This was the second unlock of the remaining PIPE shares. So this is when the PIPE round was done at 450, which was an equity financing round at a 1.1x NAV, and investors who are now up 10x from 450 seem to be taking profits. This also happened a month ago when the first half of the shares unlocked. By the way, that's when it bottomed. That was around 27, and then we've seen what happened since then. Is this 45, 46 range the bottom? I don't know. We're going to see. I did buy more yesterday, and I think a lot of people bought more on the, at one point, 10% dip that it had. Back then, the stock sold off into the stock, consolidated for a week as sellers got out, and then it doubled. This time, the dynamics seem familiar. A lot will have to do with the macro and ETH's price, but the BMNR fundamentals seem in an even better place now. The unlock is 20 million shares, which is now much smaller than last time as a share of the total supply. That's 9%, 30% of the daily volume. It's also easier for those that wanted to hedge to short in advance of the unlock. So the NAV multiple today is 1.2x. This is only 10% higher than the multiple that the PIPE investors got in. So in value terms, it's nearly as cheap today as it was when BMNR was launched. This was what Tom Lee said on my show, which is that although the stock is 10x from 450 to 40, the ETH per share has also 10x, which is why the multiple stays relatively the same. People are up a lot, but it's also less interesting to sell at these valuations relative to ETH and recent NAV growth. And then this person put out a valuation model of what they think BMNR will do as Ethereum's price goes higher. So look, my perspective on BMNR is very simple. Like, if you believe in Ethereum and you believe in the capacity for Tom Lee to buy as much Ethereum as possible and then use that Ethereum not only from a staking mechanism, but allowing the power law to kick in once they get 5% of the entire ETH supply, that is where ETH's rise gives you a multiple on BMNR as well. Yeah, I mean, it's basically almost trading at NAV. I think NAV. So they didn't put out a press release yet, but people are speculating they bought another 200,000 ETH yesterday, because once you have the unlock of the shares, you're able to raise more money and then buy the ETH. We'll see if that happens. Maybe they put the press release out in a couple of days. But at this point, if it's basically trading at NAV, you're not really paying a multiple for those shares. The question now becomes, can Ethereum continue to rise and then BMNR rise with it? The stock was at like 72 or $70 last Friday. And so we're going to see how that plays out. One way and one strategy that I'm playing BMNR, and I said this yesterday, was the covered calls. Kathy Wood did buy 15 million of it yesterday as well. She bought 300,000 shares. So the covered call premiums are exceptional, dude. I thought Hood had better premiums. I was wrong. I mean, like the premiums on this thing are just unbelievable. So, if you buy it at 48 and it goes to 45, but you sell a covered call to get $2, if you're selling covered call at 50, your cost basis is 46. I mean, if you're using it as a vehicle for income, not just as an investing vehicle, which I personally think is not the worst idea because these premiums are unbelievable. You just have to be careful because obviously, you could see you could see the stock get called away easily if ETH rises. S&P, by the way, all-time highs in the pre-market. Then I don't think that's the worst way to play BMNR either. So, they put out a press release this morning about more ETH purchases. Really? Did they? Hold on. I know someone new joined their what do you call it? Their board of directors. David Charbut. I don't know who that person is, but he just joined their board of directors. Yeah, they bought 42,000 ETH, if I'm not wrong. They bought 42,000 ETH worth 190 million. And then someone new joined their board of directors as well. I think he's from American Tower, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, wow. Huh. This is a former executive from American Tower. That was one of the biggest cellular service providers. Tom Lee says, adding David's operational experience as one of the original wireless service entrepreneurs into a multi-billion Sprint affiliate and his 17 years as the board member of American Tower, one of America's largest REITs, makes him the perfect addition to our board. American Tower is one of the greatest shareholder return stories of the last 20 years as investors recognize wireless tower companies were an essential and scarce asset is one of America's largest REITs. Similarly, ETH treasuries are providing security services for the Ethereum network by native staking, and thus Bitmine is a critical digital infrastructure partner for Ethereum. Wow. That's a pretty interesting addition to the board. So David Charbut, previous executive at American Tower, one of the largest cellular communication companies, is now on the board of Ethereum. He says, I've known Tom Lee for more than 25 years, and he is, in my opinion, the best wireless analyst I've ever interacted with in the years since. He has identified transformational opportunities in companies years before the market recognizes them, from the 2009 start of the bull market to the Bitcoin digital goal in 2017 when it was under $1,000. So when Tom Lee called me and described his vision for ETH and the exciting roadmap, I realized there's an opportunity to work on something transformational. And they bought another 42,000 ETH this morning as well. So that's the update on BMNR. Yeah, so basically it's at NAV at this point. NAV probably has increased to around 42, 43. Maybe it's trading a little bit above that, but there you go. So look, I mean, it's volatile. If you don't want the volatility of it, you just don't get in it. If you do like the volatility for covered calls or for whatever other reason, then that's fine. If you really do believe in Ethereum, maybe you just buy Ethereum because you don't want the volatility of BMNR. But if you want to leverage play against it that has native staking and a buyback in place, if they ever get below NAV for whatever reason, I think it's not the craziest idea in the world. The only concern here is that Ethereum has peaked, right? Which I don't think it has because it was $50 away from 5,000. And all the tailwinds that we have talked about in regards to this particular blockchain being accepted by Wall Street is pretty massive. So I don't think Ethereum has peaked. And one argument to prove right here that Ethereum has not peaked and that Wall Street is getting excited about it, take a look at the official ETF inflows in August. We have a couple of days left. Bitcoin ETFs lost $800 million. Ethereum ETFs got $4 billion. So it's like, that's not all retail investors. Yeah, their NAV is now $40.84, correct. So it's trading a little bit above NAV. That is a lot of institutional investors, as Tom Lee was saying on this show a couple of days ago, that are getting a lot more interested in Ethereum. They can't literally buy Ethereum, and so they're using BMNR as their proxy towards it. But it's going to be volatile. The NAV kind of creates a little bit of a floor to the stock, and there's going to be dilution. That dilution is going to be used to then buy more Ethereum, but you've got to believe in the ETH bull case. So I think if you would believe in that, then there's a way to get some leverage towards it as well. Now, then, so that's this kind of what happened with BMNR yesterday. I did buy another 100 shares of the dip. Now, the thing that was annoying yesterday is that all of high beta sold off. So Robinhood took a hit, Palantir took a hit, Tesla took a hit, AMD, SoFi went from 2650 to 2450. I mean, you just had a lot of stocks that took a hit for seemingly no reason. There was no macro data, economic data. I think it was just nervous about Nvidia. Well, Nvidia crushed it. And I don't know how the market's going to open in 10 minutes. We're going to see if the market really wants to give Nvidia some more love. But if they do, maybe some of those high beta names get back into action. Not to mention we're getting into September, and that also could be one of the reasons why, at the end of August, we give back some of the gains. S&P, dude, is trading at almost 4.3% higher than it was on August 1st. I mean, if we close anywhere near 650, if September we have to give back 2%, okay, whatever, right? Like we go back down to 635, that's fine. But it's been an incredible August. And I think it's an August that we have not seen in the past couple of years. And that's why there's going to be some volatility if we give some of that back. Along with the fact that Nvidia is also at all-time highs, basically at $4.3 trillion company. So saying this should go to $5 trillion tomorrow, I would love it, but I think it's also healthy that that doesn't easily happen. So that's what we got. That's what we got. I put a poll in the chat on if Nvidia goes green or red. 83% of you say green, which I don't think is crazy to imagine, especially given if you're just joining this China news that Fox is reporting Jensen and Trump might be working on a deal to sell Blackwell to China. If the U.S. would get some of the sales from that Blackwell chip, which again, if they have to give up 15, even if they have to give up 20%, that the amount of volume they would be bringing in from Blackwell would be incredible. Okay, earnings. So we had a bunch of earnings today, and the earnings are good across the board. We'll talk about CrowdStrike and Snowflake. Snowflake crushed it. CrowdStrike kind of crushed it. Snowflake definitively had a great earnings. Dollar General today beat by 18%. So yeah, 186 versus 157. They beat on revenue. EPS is up 9% year over year. Revenue is up 5% year over year. That stock is up 2%. So you got one retailer doing not too bad. Burlington beat by 23%, 159 versus 129. Revenue 2.7 versus 2.6. EPS is up 30% year over year. Revenue is up 10% year over year. Burlington stock is up 7%. Not too bad. Best Buy beat by 5%, 128 versus 122. Revenue 9.4 versus 9.2. Revenue is up 2% year over year. EPS is down 4% year over year. That stock I think was down. Now it's up. That stock is up 3% in the pre-markets. Victoria's Secret beat by 154% on EPS, 33 versus 13. EPS is still down 18% year over year. Revenue is up 3%, 1.45 versus 1.41 on revenue. That stock is up 11% in the pre-markets. I mean, you just had a ton of companies put up the earnings that, from a retail perspective, showed you that the consumer in Victoria's Secret or Best Buy or Dollar General or Burlington is obviously still spending. And then we had Dick's 2%, 438 versus 430, 3.6 versus 3.61. Revenue's up 5% year over year for them as well. That stock is down about 4%. So, I mean, across the board, you had some pretty good earnings today outside of just the big tech ones. Obviously, we had Snowflake yesterday. They crushed on the top and the bottom. They are now growing revenues at 30%. They deserve it. That's up 11% right here. And then CrowdStrike is growing by 21%. CrowdStrike is one of the more expensive stocks in the software space. They're acquiring another company as well. That's probably why their stock is down. They're down 3%, but it's not like they had a bad earnings either. So I don't know, dude. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, is the economy that bad if these companies are having these well of an earnings? I haven't read through the transcripts, but there's no standout quotes I saw this morning about tariffs being horrible for Victoria's Secrets or Best Buy. And if they were, I think, that would be in the guidance, and then those stocks probably wouldn't be up in the pre-market. So I don't know, dude. I think as we end out August, we got 3 days left. It's not a horrible market. And Nvidia showed us yesterday that we can keep this market going. We can keep this market going, which is kind of what we need as we get towards the end of the year. And that's what we got. So what are we looking at as soon as the market opens? Obviously, all eyes will be on Nvidia to see how this all plays out. And there was just way too much bearishness yesterday because Nvidia was down 5% on the initial reaction from algos. I mean, there was way too many people saying top, it's all done. I mean, this is one of the reasons I don't think Nvidia is topped out right now. This picture you're seeing right here from Google's new banana nano thing, this was a random photo of a guy and a random photo of AG1. The prompt was put them together, make the guy hold the AG1 packet. This is what Google came up with. I mean, this is unbelievable. Unfreaking believable. It's the worst it's ever going to get. And this is all because of Nvidia. This is all because of GPUs and compute infrastructure being able to create models that could actually produce what the Nano Banana has produced from Google's image generation processor. So this is not slowing down anytime soon. I mean, this is radically. Oh, but I was at a dinner last night, and it was like a family friend, and I was talking to someone who worked in advertising, and as soon as he said he worked in advertising, the number one thing that I thought of was like, do you know the company Trade Desk? He was like, oh, I know the company Trade Desk. I was like, what do you think about the stock, being down to 70? He was like, look, they don't have the data. Google has the proprietary data. They are away from the publishers. They are not integrated into the actual proprietary data that Google has because we search everything on Google. And so they're trying to get closer to the publishers. But as a result of that, their earnings haven't been that good. And then I was like, so is AI changing advertising? He was like, dude, AI is changing everything. He was like, this whole SEO shit is going to be gone in 5 years. He was like, everything's going to be generative engine optimization, GEO, versus search engine optimization, because all the results are now just going to ChatGPT. And I was like, so is this affecting? He works at like some boutique advertising tech firm. He was like, yeah, this is affecting our business as well. Like we have to really diligently think with our clients how we're going to optimize for their results, because things are just fundamentally changing when it comes to advertising. So like this is not going anywhere, right? That's not bearish Google, by the way. It just means like, hey, Google, I mean, in fact, he said Gemini is probably going to put out ads pretty damn soon inside of the bot because, a lot of search volume is going through Gemini. They're just going to have to figure out how they play it out. And so AI is not going anywhere. We're going to see a lot more momentum on it. And it looks like NVIDIA will benefit from that as well. So that's what we got. Webull has earnings today. Okay, so I think after the bell, let's see. After the bell, I will be live for the market close today. I do know that Iren has earnings. I know people care about that. Oh yeah, we got a bunch of companies. Affirm, Ulta, Webull, Iren, Marvell. That's a big one. Dell, Gap, Autodesk. All right, so today will be a big day after the bell. We'll have a ton of companies that we look at, and we're gonna see what they say. All right, 2 minutes. Here we go. Let's get ready for this. 83% of you say NVIDIA goes green. I think it goes green as well. It would be funny if it just sells off in front of us. But the breaking news right before we went live is that NVIDIA and Blackwell likely are going to be, or NVIDIA's likely going to be able to sell Blackwell to China. Some two pieces of macro data, 229 versus 231 on the jobless claims. That was better than expected. And GDP growth in the United States was revised from 3% to 3.3, beating expectations of 3.1. Good growth on GDP. As long as inflation doesn't go up with that, then that should be the perfect condition for Powell to continue to cut. And if so, I think we start to have some fun as we get into the latter half of the year. All right, cool. Here we go. 20 seconds. Thank you, everybody, for being here. All eyes on NVIDIA. Let's see what we can get. It is Thursday, August 28th, the day after NVIDIA earnings, 9:30 a.m. The stock market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. NVIDIA, there's your green candle. She goes green. Let's see if she can keep it. Let's see if she can keep it. 181.96, 181, 182, 182.23. Again, every single firm on Wall Street, literally every single firm has upgraded their price targets. We went from 130 to 195 for some people, 170 to 215 for some people. We went from 215 to 230 for some people. So let's see if that momentum can continue. 182.73. All-time highs is 184.40. Can we break 183? 4 cents. 183. We got it. All right. Next up, 184. Let's see. 183.30. Can she break? Bitcoin's at 113. Hood's at 104. S&P. All-time highs on S&P. All-time highs. Palantir goes green. Bitmine is green. That's up 1.5%. Open Door is up 7%. That's green. MongoDB is up 1%. Snowflake's up 10%. Wow. NVIDIA 184. All right, here we go. 40 cents. Do we break it? We got to break 184.48. Wow. It stopped at 184.43. It was stopped 5 cents from the all-time highs. Let's see. Can we break it? 184.48, folks. That's what we're looking for. It got to 184.43 and was not able to break through. Then you had some sellers right at that level. I don't know. I feel like it can break through. That was a lot of momentum as we got into it. So let's see. AMD 170. That's up 2.2. S&P 648. All-time highs on the S&P. The United States is putting GDP data on the blockchain in Trump's crypto push. That is crazy. Lutnick was talking about that yesterday. If they're actually putting GDP data on the blockchain where everyone can see it transparently, that would be wild. But let's see if that happens. Wow, we got to 184.47, 1 cent away from 184.48. Dude, you know, Jane Street and Citadel are just like, they're looking at that 1 cent. They're like, should we give it to everybody? Should we give everybody that 1 cent? They're in control of this right now. Really, we're going to stop 1 cent below all-time highs? You expect me to believe that's just coincidental? You expect me to believe that's just the fate of the universe? No, dude, they got to give it to us. They got to give it to us. Let's see. Maybe it'll take a few hours. Maybe it doesn't happen immediately, but that push is definitely there. We were 1 cent away from all-time high. Bitmine, that's up 1.7. Rocketlab, that's up 2. Google, 208, that's green. Duolingo, that's up. Oscar, that's up. Where's Costco trading? Costco is green, 950, 0.07%. Robinhood, 104, that's green. S&P, 647, that's green. AMD, 170. Micron and Dell, those are also up. Dell, again, has earnings today. Dell right there is at 134. SMCI, 45, that is also green. Nvidia 182, dude. There, I mean, I think it breaks through, but for it to stop 1 cent from the 52-week high is quite remarkable. And so we're gonna have to see. We're gonna have to see if that actually breaks through. Marvell, where is that one? This one has earnings today. Marvell 76.36. That's up 2%. Pretty much all of the CrowdStrike or all these semiconductor names are moving. CrowdStrike as well goes green. CrowdStrike good. I mean, I didn't think it was at 10% last night. It was at 405 at one point. I don't think it deserved that. But CrowdStrike right here at 1.5. Robinhood 104.88. Microsoft, that's green today from Nvidia. Amazon goes green from Nvidia. Meta goes green as well. 7.48. Apple, is that one green? Apple slightly red, but about to go green. And then Nvidia, they're just not letting it get above 184. That one is slightly red. Grab right here down about 0.5%. APDL, that's up 1.54. Google at 208. Duolingo 319. Kohl's had a great earnings yesterday. That was up. AEO, American Eagle, is now partnering with Travis Kelce. That stock's up 2%. So they have Sydney Sweeney and Travis Kelce in their budget for marketing. Adobe right here, that's green. Salesforce also goes green. They have earnings next week. Celsius green. Palo Alto's green. Intel's green. Hertz is green. Target is green. Nvidia, they're not giving it to us. They're not giving us all-time highs. They're trying, but they're not doing it. Hoodie, are we moving on Hoodie? 105. Okay, 105 on Hood. There you go. Yeah, I mean, Hood going below 100, is that possible? Yes, but I think it has a lot of support in the high 90s, low hundreds. So, I mean, it's hard to imagine that it easily just breaks down to 92, 93, unless the entire S&P breaks, which the S&P, all-time highs as we end out August. Where's Tesla? Did we look at Tesla? Tesla right here, 351. So Tesla kind of flat from yesterday. It was basically at 353, now at 351. Which is not too bad. SoFi is at 25. Yes. SoFi 25.38. That's up 2%. That's up 2%. Build-A-Bear had earnings today. Did they? That's up, wow, 15%. Build-A-Bear was one of the best stocks in 2023, actually. It was a gem. I guess they had earnings today. Market cap $893 million. Look, if people have the disposable money to go to a Build-A-Bear to, buy bears, then you would imagine the economy has some momentum, which is not too bad. Now, the Tesla headline this morning was Europe sales are down 40% year over year in July. 8,837 deliveries, which was the 7th straight month of decline. China's BYD in Europe had 13,503 registrations. So China had about 5,000, or BYD had about 5,000 more than Tesla in Europe. Tesla right there at 350, but Tesla not really, it's up from 330 last week. So still positive, even with that news. Chad says it is a nightmare for a parent. I've been there I think I went there 10 years ago, dude. I haven't been there for a while, but I would imagine if you're a parent and you have young kids, you would like to go there. But look, the fact that Build-A-Bear is doing 15%, Victoria's Secret doing 10%, or Best Buy doing 5%, Burlington Coat Factory doing 7%. Like, these companies are all niche retailers, niche because they're not as big as like a Walmart or a Target. And they beat on the top and the bottom, which is, I think, very important to analyze if we're making sure this bull market can sustain itself. And Nvidia goes red. Chad says it's extortion. Oh my God. They let us get to 1 cent of all-time highs and they took us red. I'm sorry. I don't want to be conspiratorial. I just don't believe the market makers were like, yeah, let's take Nvidia to $184.47 on the dot, 1 cent below the all-time high, and then we're going to tank it. Just doesn't feel like that just randomly happened. Bitmine right here, that is up 4%, 4780. That is green. Open Door is up 4% as well. Look, I have a lot of people asking me, will I have the Eric Jackson Open Door guy on my show? The answer is no. I really am not interested in talking to him. He tweeted about me like 30 times yesterday because he saw me mention his name yesterday on the show and saying that, hey, I just don't really like what he's doing with his community. I don't like that he's so hyper-focused on the stock and not the company, because that's not how I think you build a community. Yesterday, I saw a tweet from him saying, God put me on this earth to make Open Door go higher. And that was my nail in the coffin. That was like, okay, I don't want to talk to you. I really don't. I just, if you believe you are the Messiah handpicked by God to pump Open Door, there's no conversation that we are meant to have. So yeah, sorry, Eric Jackson. I wish you well. I hope Open Door does well. I would not like to expose you to my audience, because I personally don't think that is the type of approach to building a community. But I hope it goes up. And I really hope it goes up, because I'm long Robinhood, and I know a lot of people in your community are trading on Robinhood. So I really love when Open Door, goes up 10% in a day, because that means a lot of Robinhood volume is being done. And if it goes down 10% a day, also a lot of Robinhood action is being done. So that's how I'm thinking of Open Door stock. At least that's the way I'm playing it. SoFi right here, 2550, that's up 2.28%. Tesla 350.5. CrowdStrike, that's up 2.3. Meta 750. Nvidia trying to go back to the 180s and go green. 180.87, up from 179. So that is what you got. Palantir, how is that one doing? Palantir is 156. All right, that's down about 0.35%. Slightly down right here. Google 209. Again, that banana thing, bro. I showed you guys an image of it. It was just incredible. Like, I cannot believe how well image generation is getting. And if that's the worst that it's going to get, it looks like that's going to be good. Also, what happened to OpenAI Sora? Does anyone use that anymore? I feel like that was a tool that Sam Altman put out that no one or that OpenAI put out, and no one uses it. So I think there's still a world where an image generating product can go viral. I don't know if it's Grok Imagine or if it's Google's Bananas or OpenAI Sora, but I feel like that market, even if that's not the direct chatbot market, is still up for grabs. And maybe Google's going to try to really make a push to go after it. I think the easiest way Google can go after it is say, hey, YouTubers, you can make your thumbnails on this new product. I mean, if they reach out to a bunch of YouTubers and say, hey, start using your thumbnails with this, maybe that's a way they can also get people to start using it as well. Brandon says, I'm a video creator and Sora sucks. Yeah, I haven't used it in a year, dude. I remember they made a big deal when it launched, and then I just don't think it caught on in terms of virality. Meta right here, 750. CrowdStrike going green. Marvell 2.4. SMCI 4550. Open Door up 5. SoFi up 2. SoFi's trying to get back to 26, and Duolingo 319. Where is Bitmine? That stock 4667. That's up 1.3. Slightly green. Will Hood get into the S&P next Friday? You just reminded me that the S&P 500 is going to be making an announcement next Friday. I don't know, dude. They already got IBKR in there. That kind of makes me bearish on them getting Hood in there. I kind of think they're going to say, hey, we don't need to do a rebalance, and do the same thing they did in June, which is ridiculous because they've got companies in there that I think you probably should rebalance. But I don't know. I don't think Hood needs to get into the S&P 500 this year for them to still end the year at around 120, 125, which is my personal price target. It would be nice, but honestly, if I had to bet, I would say no. If they picked IBKR already, they're probably not going to let another financial in. They already picked Block a week ago, so I don't want to get people's hopes down, but I definitely don't want to get people's hopes up, because I don't see it happening this year. But if it does, I'll be pleasantly surprised. Watch them announce SoFi. They're gonna be like, hey, SoFi in the S&P 500. Which I wouldn't hate. I'd be happy for everyone in SoFi. It's just, we got to see when we can get Hoodie in there. But I think 2026, we likely get it. Google, very close to 210. Oh, it hit 210. No, it hit 210. 210.52. All right, so let's see if we can break above 210. And we can get there. CoreWeave, did that go down with Nvidia? CoreWeave, 104.32. That's up 7%. CoreWeave is up 7%. So CoreWeave, ironically, Nvidia's flat and CoreWeave's up 7%. I mean, I feel like you got a lot of algos playing with NVIDIA right here for that one to go directionally opposite towards NVIDIA. And the fact that they took it to 184.47 and brought it back down is just hilarious to me. CrowdStrike did bounce back. That one's doing good. MongoDB, great quarter as well. That's now up 10% for the year. Wow, cracked 300. There you go. Up another 3% today. So now MongoDB for the year. So what, 15%? 25%. That's how good the quarter has been. This thing was down 17%. Now it's up 25 within the past 48 hours. Not too bad. Do you think NVIDIA recovers over the day? I mean, yeah, I think NVIDIA should be cracking 185 if it got that close. It just feels like they're not letting it get back up there. But even if it doesn't, if it stays at 180 for the rest of the year, like, I'm not going to complain. Like, I think it should be higher. And do I think it should get a higher premium than Costco? Yes, if that's what you're asking me. But am I going to be, I just don't want it to get to the point where it becomes, egregious and it goes back to 130, 140, 150, which is these are some of the price targets I'm seeing online. And I'm like, what are people smoking? How are they getting to these numbers? Like, it seems like they're just pulling it out their ass and they're saying this thing deserves to collapse. And it's like, I didn't know NVIDIA had that many haters is what I'm trying to say. I knew Palantir had haters. I know Hood has haters. Tesla has haters. I didn't know that many people hate NVIDIA. And it's astonishing to me, but I think it's what Jose said. I think someone wants to be the Michael Burry of AI. And you got a lot of people trying to be the person who called the bubble. And I think they may be waiting for a very long time. A-Lab, that's up another 5%. There you go. Arista and Astera been doing great the past couple of weeks as well. Chad said something about Jim Cramer. Let me see. What did Jim Cramer tweet? Oh boy. Well, there you go. There's Mr. Cramer right there. Again, I feel like his incessant Palantir to 200 is partly what freaking messed up Palantir actually trying to go to 200. But yeah, that's not the easiest. I mean, look, Kramer's been bullish for NVIDIA for a long time. So I got to give Cramer credit. He's been bullish for NVIDIA for a long time, except in 2021 when he got very bearish. So he has flipped up on him. But I mean, look, if you're going to tweet, there we go, huge at 8:59 right before NVIDIA makes its run. Well, what are the algos going to do? They're going to index that Jim Cramer tweet, and then they're going to say, you know what? We're going down. We're going down. Almost exactly at that moment. There you go. NVIDIA goes red. 180.35 down 0.5%. Oh, this one was kind of okay. So Big Sean, he's an American rapper. He did. This one was weird. This is such a toppy video, bro. It's such a toppy video. This is a rapper who, from my understanding, does not really engage in the investing community. And he told his fans at the end of the show to buy Bitcoin and Ethereum because he thinks they're going higher. Like, again, you see stuff like that and it makes you uncomfortable because it means too many people are talking about it. I don't think that means, Ethereum or Bitcoin are not going higher, but yeah, you did have Big Sean tell his audience to buy Bitcoin and Ethereum. So Ethereum right here, 45.84. It feels like a top, right? Like the Kanye West meme coin was last week. That felt like a top. Obviously, this Eric Jackson guy is standing in front of Drake's door to buy Open Door stock feels like a top. Like all these little idiosyncratic things feel toppy. But then again, you remember Open Door is worth $4 billion. The Kanye West meme coin, I think, is worth a couple billion. Like all these things, if they went to zero, it would not affect the broader market. And it's not stopping AI. So I would hope that doesn't destroy anything. Yeah. Now, if Big Sean came out with an NFT or something like that, you got the rappers coming out with that type of stuff, then it would be a bit worse. Did he let them know it was not financial advice? Literally at the end of the video, he was like, well, I don't really know if it's going to happen, but this is what I think. So he kind of put a little disclaimer at the end because the way he was talking, I was like, bro, this sounds like if someone buys it and it doesn't go up, you're going to get a lawsuit. But at the end, he kind of just like protected himself a little bit. Fed Governor Lisa Cook sued Trump over his move to fire her, setting up an unprecedented battle that will test his power over the central bank's board. That's breaking news from the Wall Street Journal. Looks like Lisa Cook and Trump are going to court. She is counter-suing Trump for the way he fired her in an attempt to block the firing from the central bank. Okay. There you go. I guess we're going to see how that ends up playing out. Again, this whole Fed independence thing, I don't think that affects the broader market. I really don't. But it is going to be entertaining to see how this all plays out. Like, again, you're just not selling Nvidia because of Fed independence. Like, everything comes down to the most transformational technological revolution of our lifetimes, backed by numbers, not hyped. So whatever random stuff is happening in the economy that like ultimately is not meaningful in the next 5 years, I just don't think I don't think it adds to the discount rate that you put on the multiples for these stocks. But it is entertaining. It is entertaining to see how this plays out. Okay, so Rocketlab is doing something in 30 minutes, and Matt and Vince are there. I was so happy to see Matt and Vince yesterday meet up. These guys are the reason that I even own Rocketlab. I believe they're in Virginia, and they're looking at the Neutron launchpad. And Rocketlab's going live to show everybody that. They personally got invited by the company. That's really cool. That's really freaking cool. So very excited for those guys to be. It's a ribbon cutting ceremony. Okay. Yeah, I'm excited that they're getting to go there. See, Rocketlab's doing it the right way. Rocketlab is really doing it the right way. They could have invited all the mainstream media, CNBC, Bloomberg Press, but they're inviting the Rocketlab weekly. And that's very exciting. So very happy for them. That'll be really cool to see some pictures from that event. Tesla right here, 350, CrowdStrike 425, Marvell 76, SMCI 44, NVIDIA 180, Bitmine 4669, Hoodie is at 104.40. AppLovin, that one, which deserves a deep dive hopefully soon. Wow, look at that. 500 it was at back in February. It peaked at 525. Trying to get back to 500, 479. This company not being in the S&P 500 is even weirder to me than Robinhood not being in the S&P 500. So you would hope the committee does a rebalance in September. Maybe they include both. But it's hard to imagine Enphase in the S&P and AppLovin's not there. It's just very weird. So this one hopefully gets some love as well. RR, that robotic stock we talked about yesterday, that one is down 7%. Okay, so apparently Nvidia did not take an equity stake in these guys. Nvidia tweeted about them, and that's what sent the stock flying. But some of you guys said Nvidia took an equity stake yesterday of like 3%, and I don't know. Seems like that maybe isn't the case, but they did tweet about them together, and that could have been the reason the stock was up 30%. I still don't know what AppLovin does. Honestly, I don't know either. It's advertising technology. That's why we need to do a deep dive. It's advertising technology, and they're not talked about that much in the media. And the CEO doesn't do a lot of interviews, so I think it would deserve a deep dive. Druva, thanks for the $5 super chat. Could Taylor's disapproval of Travis working around Sydney be a bear case for American Eagle? Dude, could you imagine the album we would get if Travis Kelce cheated on Taylor Swift with Sydney Sweeney because they both now work at the marketing department for American Eagle? I mean, I don't want that to happen, but that album would be different, bro. That album would be special. I don't think that's going to happen. Probably not going to happen, but yeah, I wouldn't see that as the biggest bear case. Okay, yeah, so I saw this news. Chainlink partners with the Department of Commerce to bring macroeconomic data on chain. So Chainlink right here, let me pull this one up. I know a lot of people have been more excited about Chainlink as a ecosystem. Apparently, if they're partnering with the BLS to bring macroeconomic data like GDP growth, jobless claims on chain, that would be very exciting. Chainlink is up a little bit right here. It's up 2% on the day, so that's good. Not bad. I don't know how much this is actually going to increase the validity of this currency or this crypto asset as a means to overtake the network effect of Ethereum or Bitcoin or the market cap. I think that's cool that they're partnering with the government to put macroeconomic data on chain. I don't necessarily know if that means Chainlink's going to the moon, but it's nice to see that they're partnering with some blockchain to get that stuff transparently done. Just don't know if that is the case. And again, I just haven't done a lot of research on Chainlink, so I got to do a lot more research on it to really understand it. But yeah, it's cool, dude. I don't think Chainlink's going to have the Ethereum moment that we're seeing right now. Like, you need a lot of advocates publicly you need a Tom Lee of Chainlink to get people to really care about you. At the end of the day, dude, like, A, I think the use cases are lacking for Chainlink compared to Ethereum, but B, you also don't have the ambassadorship like a Michael Saylor for Bitcoin or a Tom Lee for Ethereum or a Vitalik for Ethereum, for example, that would really get the masses to care about it. And so it's just not that interesting to me as an asset to buy. It's interesting as a concept. And again, I don't know enough about it, and hopefully we'll do a deep dive in the coming months, but I don't know if it's the most exciting thing in the world. NVIDIA right here going red, down 2%. Down 2% on the day. Chainlink runs off of Ethereum. See, I didn't even know that. But if it does, then yeah, I'd rather just buy Ethereum. Like, see, I don't know enough about Chainlink. I know a lot of people like it. I don't know enough about it. But it's just not that exciting compared to some of these other assets that are out there. Now, I would buy Chainlink over any of the other meme coins, right? Like I would buy it over Fartcoin, but I feel like ETH is the main one that's catching a bid. Palantir right here down 1.3. Open Doors up 2. Tesla 351. SoFi 25.38. Nubank trying to get to 15. This one had a great quarter. Hopefully that one can sustain that quarter. And you got Rocket right here, another rate cut play. That is up a little bit as well. Yes, I do know that Chainlink is, people have called Chainlink the Palantir of crypto in that it links all of the blockchains together, kind of like almost like a KLLM version of AIP where multiple LLMs are integrated. Well, that's cool. It's just not the most exciting to me. But again, I just don't know enough about it. Maybe if I learn more, it'll pique more interest. Vertiv right here, 131. That's green. Oklo 75.40. That's up 3%. Snapchat still stuck at $7. That one has just not been able to move realistically for the past 2 weeks ever since earnings. That one's been kind of flat, holding above 7, but it looks like it does not want to hold above 7. And Nvidia continues to go down as it's now 177.82, all the way from 184.47. 1 cent away from all-time highs. Why not? Why not? Grab has also been flat for the past 6 months. Yeah, I mean, look, again, for Grab, number one thing they're going to have to do is show us what they're doing with that cash. Number two thing they're going to have to do is raise their adjusted EBITDA growth. The other thing about Grab is, look, it's August. You already have low trading volumes across the entire market. Grab is a stock that not that many people care about, not that many people know about, so you're not going to have that much volatility in this one either. But to me, I like that for building a position because it's basically dead money on something that I believe is undervalued, I believe has a lot of cash on the balance sheet, and I believe eventually is going to break out given its earnings growth. But it's also dead money. So it's not like you can expect to buy today and have it go to $10 tomorrow. Now, Bitmine, you buy that today, that could go to 55 tomorrow, right? But it could also go down to like 42. So it's like the volatility of it is either exciting to you as we head towards the end of the year in a sort of low trading volume time in September, or it's something you just don't want to deal with. CrowdStrike goes red, Meta goes red, Apple goes red, all of the Mag 7 and some of the semis, SMCI going red as well. S&P goes red based on NVIDIA. Also going red. Yeah, that's weird, dude. That's just weird. Snowflake's the one that's really getting the love today, up 16%. NVIDIA, 1 cent below all-time highs, and then they take it back down 177. So now we have to see where the buyers step in, if this is all algorithmic or if this gets a shot to get some love going into the 173s or 174s, and that's when buyers step in, or if we rebound back to the 180s. Bloom Energy, yes, IBKR is down 4% from the inclusion. I mean, the inclusion doesn't mean that your stock has to go up, but it does create a bit of a tailwind for more institutional buying. Now, again, the buyers have not bought IBKR yet. It's just been announced. So when you get more inflows, that could be when IBKR really goes up. But that one's been rather flat. Also, IBKR doesn't have a lot of retail investors that would buy it just because the S&P 500. Bloom Energy, that's up 5%. Again, one thing that we did get from NVIDIA earnings is that energy will be catching a bid no matter what, whether it's Oklo, CEG, Bloom Energy. I mean, Jensen was talking about energy last night and how we need more capacity for energy coming online. So even if NVIDIA is not catching a bid, you would imagine some of these energy plays based on the level of growth that NVIDIA put up and they guided for at $54 billion. It looks like that's not going anywhere anytime soon. Again, the biggest quote we got from Jensen yesterday, which to me was the most important, is this right here. Over the next 5 years, we're going to scale into effectively a 3 to 4 trillion AI infrastructure opportunity. CapEx has grown in just the top 4 CSPs and has doubled and grown to about 600 billion. So we're in the beginning of this build out. I mean, that's a lot. It's a lot. 4 trillion by 2030 is going to be going to, a lot of it's going to be going to Nvidia. A lot of it's going to be going to AMD. A lot of it to SMCI and Dell. Like all these players, I feel like being in these names over the next couple of years is not crazy. Obviously, Nvidia should be the one that benefits the most from it. But if Jensen, either Jensen's wrong about that and it's not going to be 4 trillion of CapEx, or he's underplaying it. And over the next 3 years, we're going to get a much better understanding of it. S&P officially goes red on the day. PSTG, Pure Storage, they also had a great earnings yesterday. That is up 24%. So even with Nvidia down 2%, pretty much every other company, whether it's Best Buy, Pure Storage, Snowflake, all these names crushed. And it's nice to see a little bit of that broadening out as well. Let's look at the heat map right now and see where we're at. Yeah, it's actually Mag 7 green, everything else red today, even if Nvidia is slightly down. Broadcom's actually up 3%. So Broadcom's catching a bid. Google's, Meta's catching a bid. Oracle's catching a bid. Utilities, healthcare, consumer defensives, industrials are down. A lot of that money rotating back into semis and SaaS. Actually, a lot of the semis are green. Micron, Qualcomm, AMD, Nvidia is the only one that's actually red. But a lot other of these names are holding up. What's the next price target for Palantir, or the next catalyst for Palantir? I don't think there's a catalyst per se. It would obviously just be earnings probably in November, unless we get some major press release since then. I think, again, the biggest thing for Palantir is, can it sustain the multiple that it's already trading at? Palantir trades at an aggressive multiple. I would like it to not get back down to the low hundreds. Could I see that happening if we get a macro turn down? Yeah, anything could happen. We saw it go down from 190 to 140 2 weeks ago. But do I think it needs to go back to 190? No. I think it just needs to stay, consolidate at this multiple, and allow it to grow into the multiple by continuing to put up really good quarters. And the real catalyst is the quarters, because Q1 was amazing, or Q2. Q3 guidance was even better, so I think Q3 is going to crush it. They just need to hold their multiple. Now, the rate cuts are going to help for growth stocks in general, and so that is, I guess, a pseudo catalyst, you could call it. But one could argue that's being priced into the entire market. NVIDIA right here, 176, low of the days. That is down 2.5% as well. I haven't looked into Ondas that much, guys. I know people have been thinking about this one. I just don't know enough about it. I understand a little bit of the thesis that you guys have talked about, but not enough to really go that deep into it. It is up 5.3% right here. It's had a good couple months, but this one's going to require a little bit more deep diving to get into it. How much damage can the PCE figure cost tomorrow? A lot. I mean, look, if PPI was bad and the market didn't care, PCE is kind of the Fed's preferred metric of inflation, more than CPI and PPI. So, I mean, we need a good PCE. Now, the projections, I think, are that it's not going to be the best. The question is, how much does the market really care? Could that cause the September slump, driven by a core PCE that's not what the market wants to see? By the way, we're about to get pending home sales right now at 10 a.m. So I'll give you guys that data in a second. But we should be getting PCE tomorrow at 8:30. And yeah, the street's expecting about 0.2%. So we would be hoping that one isn't that much far above it. That one will be important. Okay, home sales. Home sales, I think we're getting it. Let me just pull this up. What do we have? Home sales come in at 0.4%, negative 0.4% month over month in July. That's versus negative 0.1%. So that's a miss. And then I'm waiting for the year over year number. Yeah, so there's July, negative 0.4. The month before was negative 0.8. So that's a little bit better than the month before, but the expectation was negative 0.1. So missed expectations. Then we'll get year over year in a second and see what that looks like. Again, the housing market is really what will unlock home sales, and we got to see when rate cuts happen. We had the mortgage rates came in yesterday at 6.67%, so it's not at 7.8% like it was 5 months ago. But NVIDIA right here, 177. we definitely need some lower rates. Year over year, those numbers are not out yet, still pending. Streets expecting 0.4% positive year over year on the change. 0.3%. Okay, we get 0.3. Okay. A little bit lower than expected. Not that bad. Not that bad. Again, that one's probably not affecting the S&P as much. S&P basically flat right here. Let me pull up some of the coverage on home sales, and we'll keep going from there. Okay, so let's pull this up.
Pending home sales in July dropped 0.4% from June and were 0.7% higher from July of last year, according to the realtors. The street was looking for a tiny gain of 0.3%, so let's just call it even. Now, this count is based on signed contracts, so people out inking deals in July, when the average rate on the 30-year fixed was moving higher. You can see it began falling in August, but that is not reflected in these numbers. Regionally, sales dropped month to month in the Northeast and Midwest. They were flat in the South, and they rose in the West. Interesting, because the West is the most expensive region. Now, again, while rates did drop some in August, just 16% of realtors surveyed said they expect an increase in buyer traffic over the next 3 months. Now, given that these are signed contracts, I also want to note a very recent report from Redfin that found these contracts being canceled at the highest rate since they began tracking this in 2017. 15% of homes that went under contract in July, says Redfin, were canceled. Carl, back to you.
Diana Oleg, thank you very much. We got some more breaking news this morning from Lisa Cook and the lawsuit that's been filed. Our Steve Leisman's been going through the documents. Steve, what do we have?
Yeah, we have now the key issues, which is what is Lisa Cook asking the court to do? Obviously, this is a case where she is suing President Trump, as well as the Federal Reserve and Jay Powell, and I'll get to that for the reason why. But she's asking the court to declare her firing unlawful and void by the president. The president's termination of Cook is a clear violation of law, the lawsuit says, and that governors can only be removed for cause. This is part of a...
So we covered that news again. Lisa Cook is suing Trump for the unlawful firing that's going to go back and forth. Home sales, again, kind of a nothing burger for the market. Google, though, is hitting all-time highs, which is very nice to see. There you go, 210.39, 210.54 was that. That is up 1.4% of the day. So even though Nvidia is down, the other beneficiary of it in the context of AI is Google. And it looks like Google is getting some momentum. Let me check 211 resistance. This is my calls are now break even. I needed to get to at least 210 to break even on my 150 calls by January 2026. Well, there we go. We are here. 211 resistance on Google. About 10,000 shares. About 10,000 at 211 to try to get there. So we got to see if that can get there. Trump's pick for Stephen Myron is on track for confirmation before the Fed. He's definitely going to get that pick in. Lisa Cook might give him another pick unless they stay in court for the next couple months, which seems likely unless the Supreme Court puts out a decision soon. But looks like he will control, or getting ready to control, a majority of the Fed. Bitmine right here, that's up 2.54. S&P is flat. Google's green. App 11's up. So App 11's green, Hood's green, Open Door's green, Google's green, Interactive Brokers is green, Nvidia is red. And a lot of the semis are also green, like Micron and Dell. They are, yeah, Micron's up 2%. Micron back to 120. This thing was at 105 last week. So that's Nvidia. That's the only one that the street is taking down. And then Nubank. There you go. Nubank. This is a great one. Tanner is heavy in Nubank. $15. They deserve it. Incredible quarter. Incredible growth. Street's starting to recognize that. All-time highs on Nubank is 16. Let me check the stock draft. That should definitely be helping Tanner today. And $16 is where it kind of topped out. SoFi as well is up 3%. Matt's up 27. I'm up 12. Tanner very close to catching up with me. He's up 10.2. So he could overtake me any day. Steve is down 1.8 and Chris is up 2%. Chris also has Google. So Google starting to get Chris more into the green. He's up 20% on his Google. So you got Matt, Mitt, Tanner, Chris, and Steve is the order right now for that. I did not see this. Google's talking about launching their own L1 chain, Google Cloud Universal Ledger, GCUL, to compete with USD Stripe for financial settlement. Huh. Now, see, that's a piece of crypto news that is actually very interesting because it opens up a lot of opportunities for Google to work in the financial sector. Ironically, Google Finance, you know how people hate Google Finance? One of their Google Finance executives put out a beta version of the new revamped Google Finance, and you can sign up for it in his tweet. And it's like a totally revamped experience of finance because people just hate like searching stocks on Google because it's always like wrong data and stuff. Interesting. So Google's thinking of launching their own layer 1 chain as a cloud universal ledger. Huh. That's interesting. Well, okay, so what would this be built on is the question. Would it be Chainlink? Would it be ETH? Would it be not built on ETH? It would be their own native chain. Google up 2% right here. Broadcom as well, getting some love. That's up 2.3, 307. Everything's getting love except NVIDIA today. Everything is getting love besides NVIDIA. Oh, yeah, you're right. L1 is native. Yeah, that wouldn't. L2 is where you would see, like Robinhood's is L2 for tokenization, which is on Ethereum. Huh, that is actually interesting. That is if they're, dude, competing with Stripe. Stripe's a $100 billion company. And they're not going to compete with every element of Stripe, but if they're competing with Stripe for settlement, in particular with USDC, which is, you know, one of the things that the Stripe brothers have been talking about deeply. That's interesting. Okay, so we have a quote from someone on LinkedIn on Google. All this talk of layer 1 blockchains has brought Google's own layer 1 into focus. As a product leader in crypto, you know that if you're building a layer 1, it has to be differentiated. GCUL brings together years of R&D at Google to provide financial institutions with a novel layer 1 that is performant, credibly neutral, and enables Python-based smart contracts. It is why institutions like the CME Group choose the Universal Ledger to explore tokenization. Besides bringing to bear Google's distribution, GCUL is a neutral infrastructure layer. Tether won't use Circle's blockchain, and Adyen probably won't use Stripe's blockchain, but any financial institution can build with GCUL. We'll be releasing more technical details in the coming months. I mean, that's pretty exciting. Just like the idea that Google would be going that deep into it. You could tell they probably been working on it for a while. And again, this is what happens when you're a $2 trillion company. You have multiple teams working on multiple verticals. Not all of them are going to work, but obviously you're interested to explore as many as you can. NVIDIA trying to recover right here. Google, 211 broke through. There you go. 211 is here. On the Googs, 212 resistance is also not that bad. It's about 12,200 shares. 12,200 shares. Okay, there you go. Google, I guess, catching the bid today. Outside of NVIDIA. I wonder if this is, I don't think this is bearish Stripe, but I wonder what it would look like for Stripe now that they're trying to go public as well. Yeah, this is a comparison picture between Stripe, Circle, and GCUL. That is exactly what the quote was from the guy on LinkedIn that he was talking about as well. Yeah, Webull earnings after the bell. Webull earnings after the bell will look. We actually have a lot of earnings that are now after the bell today. CME Group is the futures and options company. Yeah, CME Group. I mean, it is the biggest company when you talk about futures and options. It's the tool we use for the Fed Watch, which is now 85% in probability of a rate cut for September. Them partnering with Google is also a pretty big deal. I mean, you talk about, at this point, hundreds of billions of transactions going through CME in regards to futures, index options, etc. That is pretty damn exciting. All right, so Google, that one's getting some momentum based on them laying that out. Is Snowflake still up 15%? Snow is Google 215 or 211. Snowflake 238. Wow, Snowflake's up 20%. They grew revenues 32%. I guess SaaS is not dead as Snowflake continues to gain momentum. And it looks like that is kind of the major stock that's maintaining a little bit of force. Again, 212 resistance right here is at 11,000 shares for the Googs. Okay, this Rocketlab thing, we can pull this up as well. I don't know exactly what they're doing here, but imagine we see Matt Money. That would be so cool if we see him live. Rocketlab, it's the Launch 3 Complex 3 official opening. Oh, I think it's about to go live literally right now. Okay, let's switch over to this for a second and see what they've got. Snowflake, yeah, 3-year high on Snowflake. Looks like this one's about to go live. Oh, yeah, the DOJ ruling for Google. That is also rumored to be happening today. Might not happen today, but it's being rumored to happen today. And that could either take Google way up or, who knows, potentially take Google down if it's like a really bad ruling. But that is something that everyone has to keep an eye on out today, because that's something that we might end up seeing. Okay, the Rocketlab thing is not live yet, so we'll go back to it in a bit. Rocketlab, that stock is 46.51. That's up a little bit. It's going to fly favorable. So does anyone know exactly what Google wants? Like, can someone put out the worst case and the best case? Because the worst case, from my understanding, is the DOJ forces a breakup between one of their entities. I think Chrome is the one that's been rumored to be the biggest one that could be broken up. The best case is Google pays a fine or a settlement, and the DOJ says, even though you're a monopoly, you have to stop your anti-competitive practices in XYZ, but that doesn't mean you have to, break up YouTube or Android from Google, right? That would be the best case scenario. And yeah, I mean, Google probably does fly if that's the ruling. But, we're going to have to see how that ends up playing out. And I also think that's just aggressive, bro. With Trump's SEC, that's aggressive. And Trump's DOJ, to really say Google, you have to break up a YouTube or a Chrome or something, like, it's just, it feels way too anti-competitive in the context of business. It doesn't seem like a Trump DOJ would want to do that. Palantir right here trying to recover 155 up from 152. But we would have to see. Now, yeah, the Apple thing I think also would be part of it, right? The $26 billion they pay per year to Apple. SoFi right here at 25.81. Yeah, so either this week or today. The rumors were today that we were going to get the disclosure of it. That also could be why Google's, maybe it's not this finance stuff. Maybe Google's rising a little bit because people think the DOJ news is not going to be as bad. Google right here up 1.53%. What's your thoughts on HIMS? Will it come back anytime soon? Honestly, not sure. They are still caught up in lawsuits and controversies. I was actually talking to someone about HIMS a couple of days ago, someone who's a good friend of mine, and he's an investor. And I asked him what his thesis was. And he's 41. And he was just like, dude, as you get older, there's going to be more issues that you have to deal with in life. And like, I'm not going to a doctor to talk about this stuff. I don't want to go through Amazon. I want to just do it in a personalized way. And I want to do it in a way where I know it's like safe and secure. And he started using him a couple of years ago, and now he's an investor. He's like, I just don't know why this thing wouldn't be sticky for the next 20 years of my life, and why the operating margins wouldn't go way higher while the marketing costs go way down as the average order value per user goes way up. And they only have 2.4 million subscribers. That's nothing, bro. I mean, they have a TAM of tens of millions of people across the world. So his thesis was like, I really don't care what happens with Novo or the compounders. I think the stock is going way higher over the next 5 years. And so maybe there's not any short-term catalyst. It still is up 110% year to date, but his thesis was pretty similar to everyone else about HIMS. At-home blood work would be a game changer, 100%. 100%. Where is the moat? Like this is the same question about HIMS that people have been asking for a long time, including myself. I think the moat is just the ability for them to capture a user and then keep that user. So theoretically, there is no moat, right? Because like the moat is the amount of marketing they spend. But once they get you in their ecosystem, if you don't leave, I mean, to me, even if that's not a traditional moat, because it could theoretically be replaced by someone else, it's hard to imagine people just leave HIMS for something else. Kind of like Hood to an extent, right? Hood doesn't technically have a moat in regard to there's other brokerages, but the user experience is the moat. And I feel like that could be the same argument for HIMS. Granted, we have to see what happens with the lawsuits, but That is the broader bull case that someone was telling me about a couple days ago. Okay, this Rocketlab thing still isn't live, so I will switch over to it when it's live, but it's not live yet. What are some covered calls for BMNR? Where's that trading at? Are we at what, 47? I think 52. I did 52 this week. I'm up a lot on those. I think you want to be at like a 0.25 to 0.3 delta. I wouldn't go any higher than that, even though the premiums are really good. So 50 to 52, I don't think is too crazy. Again, the hard part about covered calls on BMNR is if ETH just randomly explodes like it did on Friday, then your covered calls get hit. But you could also just roll them out as, Ethereum might consolidate, BMNR might consolidate, and therefore you're able to rinse and repeat every week. But 50 to 52, I don't think is that crazy. Okay, so this is the clarifying update on this blockchain-based data. U.S. government to initially publish commerce data on all of these different chains with Link and Pyth acting as oracles for it. Trump did mention this at the cabinet meeting, that they're going to put all their data on the blockchain. I do think it's a good idea to make things more transparent. The question here becomes the methodology of the data and how it's determined, aggregated, is kind of the big thing that people care about. If that were to be disclosed on the blockchain so that people could see how you find the jobless claims or the lack of job reports, I think that's the one that people care about the most. And also Trump cares about the most. But we're going to see how that ends up playing out. Let's get an update on this Lisa Cook lawsuit as well. Got some more coverage here right now.
Have we, and by the way, didn't mention the STB, Democrat there. That's obviously kind of in our world, certainly given rail consolidation. Is it like anything we've seen prior in a prior administration, or does it stand on its own, Eamon?
No, this is definitely uncharted waters here, right? I mean, Lisa Cook this morning is saying that her firing is, quote, unprecedented and illegal. She's going to fight it. She says her due process rights have been trampled on here, and we'll see where that lawsuit goes. But as you say, we've seen a pattern of these now with the Trump administration, and we prepared a graphic here to show all the different officials that the president has either fired or attempted to fire over the course of this administration. Rebecca Slaughter at the FTC, she's challenging that. That's in court right now. Alvarado Bedoya at the FTC, also Erica McIntyre, the BLS commissioner, Lisa Cook, as we just said, challenging that firing. Susan Menares at CDC also challenging that firing decision. Robert Primus at the Surface Transportation Board, so much influence over railroads. He has said he's going to challenge that firing as well. So some of these officials are going quietly, some of them are going loudly, and some of them are saying they're not going at all. And what you got here, David, is an overall approach by this White House to say that we're going to, sort of turn our backs on, a generation or a couple generations of precedent in Washington. We are going to take control of these so-called independent federal regulators because we don't think that they should be independent from political judgment when it's, our political judgment as the White House as to what to do. Now, there's been a longstanding belief in Washington that what you need in a lot of these regulatory jobs is somebody who's nonpartisan, non-ideological, and sort of a technocrat to run that, who's free from political interference, and that would give you better relationship between government and business. The Trump approach, entirely different. What President Trump is saying is, okay, look, you may have said that those people were non-political, but they were all political, and they were doing things that were based on their political ideology.
All right, so that's the update with Cook and the Fed. Victor, thank you for the super chat. Admit, please buy your first hymn share on me. Victor, I will buy another one for you, but I already have hymns, so it is in the portfolio. But thank you for the $44 super chat, and thank you for being here. Rocketlab is live, folks. Let me switch over to that.
If you
Find
stand
Matt
these
Money
on up beside every other rocket that's been built and flown, it looks different. And that's fundamentally because we're able to start with a clean sheet of paper, stand back and go, okay, let's take all of the things we learned from our reusability program in Electron, all of the things that we learned from others' reusability programs, lay down a blank sheet of paper, and let's start from scratch and design the optimum medium-class reusable launch vehicle.
So rockets are very beautifully engineered machines. There's a lot of cost, complexity that goes into developing a system that has to be so precise and reliable. It would be a shame to throw it away. So reusability on Neutron spans the entire vehicle. We have a fully reusable first stage that includes what we call the Hungry Hippo fairing that stays attached to the rest of the stage one structure. That allows us to bring the whole assembly back. So bringing it back as one piece makes this whole operation very airplane-like.
The vast majority of the structures on Neutron are carbon fiber composites. It will be the largest carbon fiber structure to ever fly when completed, which is incredibly impressive. There's a reason why all of the modern fighter jets ever made are carbon fiber. It's because of that strength and stiffness per unit weight. For our customer base, the reason why it's important is that that will reduce fundamentally the launch cost as we go into repeat operations. The manufacturing process with the carbon fiber composites uses an automated fiber placement machine. The machine is 5 stories tall and has a powerful laser at its head. And what it does is it takes 16 spools of half-inch tape. The tape is carbon fiber pre-impregnated with resin and pulls it into the head and depositions it onto the surface of the tool. This then creates a structure layer by layer, putting down something like a half metric ton of material a day.
One of the key challenges when you're designing anything for a rocket like Neutron is that there is not a lot of margin on either side of the design. Unlike maybe a bridge or a skyscraper, every pound or kilogram of mass that you add to a rocket design impacts directly the performance. And so there's a very fine balance between adding structure and keeping everything light. We've done a good job of that with Neutron.
Avionics is just an aerospace term for electronics which fly. It includes power systems, computers, data connections, navigation, radio connections to the ground as well. Each stage on Neutron has its own flight computer, and this is the device which makes the decisions during flight. It's looking at sensors from across the vehicle, it's looking at where the vehicle is, whether everything is nominal, how it's performing. It's adjusting the engine to make sure that you've got the right thrust. It's adjusting the thrust vector so you're pointing in the right direction. So that's all part of the avionics system, and we deploy our software and algorithms onto that entire system. And we make sure that it's responding in the way we want to by testing before we fly. Something like the hardware in the loop facility behind me allows us to have a fully representative rocket, essentially in a server rack in a lab, so we can run simulated flights to orbit using real hardware and using software simulations as well. So when we work with our customers, we can make sure that we are flying their rocket, their payload, their mission, and we can do that thousands of times all the way through the relationship. That can start before we even start a contract, all the way to launch day as well, so that we're constantly refining, making sure there's no surprises on launch day, because it's all about mission success.
Archimedes is an aux-rich stage combustion engine. There are 9 of them on stage 1. The stage 1 engine is capable of 165,000 pounds of thrust, and on stage 2, it's capable of 200,000 pounds of thrust. A majority of the Archimedes components are made out of additive manufactured parts. We leverage a lot of the Rocketlab experience in additive manufacturing that enables us more design freedom and fast iteration.
We really kind of pioneered additive manufacturing for space travel. The Rutherford engine was the first orbital 3D printed rocket engine ever produced. Since then, I think we've already flown over 600 of these engines. We've made well over 1,000 of them. So moving into Archimedes was, we could take a lot of lessons learned from that and instantly hit the ground running with the things that we knew we were going to have challenges with. So the good thing about bringing additive manufacturing into production is that it's very scalable. And then it all just comes down to efficiency gains in the process. Where can we start printing a little faster, shaving weight, doing all these things just to get the machines to spit parts out as quick as possible. So it's really easy to turn the knob when it's time to scale.
I think I tell people really simply, we test rocket engines, right? Our job is to take the Archimedes, run it through the test procedures necessary to be able to determine its performance, its design criteria, make sure it's meeting those and that it's been manufactured to tolerance. Our days start here with the engineering and technician teams going through daily checkouts. That'll be leak checks. Then we go through purge checks, make sure the engine's inert. Then we're ready to test the engines. On a good day, we could go run 5 or 6 hot fire tests a day. You go through design analysis processes, but you really don't know until you get to the test stand in real conditions, real propellant, real pressures. So you want to go through those. And what you might do, and what we've done here is there's a few different designs, and we'll make changes. We may be able to change part of the main injector on the engine and be able to put the engine back and test again. So we've done design validation of 2 or 3 pieces of hardware in a week that way to help the designers move forward.
All right, TC1, that looks pretty solid. Gonna go ahead and arm facility.
launch site diversity is incredibly important for the nation. That's why we're really excited to bring national security launch down to Wallops Island.
Launch Complex 3 is located on Virginia's eastern shore at NASA's Wallops Flight Facility. It's constructed on pile-supported foundations. We have over 5,000 cubic yards of concrete on site to pour the foundations. On the launch complex itself, in the center, you'll see a large steel structure. That's the launch mount with its supporting mechanisms that support, hold, and subsequently release Neutron. In addition to that, you'll see a number of buildings on site. Those are the launch equipment vaults that have all the controls and electrical equipment for both the ground and the launch vehicle itself. You'll see a variety of tanks. Those are the high-pressure gas and propellant storage farms that store and ultimately load Neutron with fuel and oxidizer ahead of test and launch.
And Launch Complex 3, looks a little different than most other orbital launch pads of a vehicle this class. We did that intentionally to reduce the amount of bespoke infrastructure that needs to be created to support this rocket. You'll see the pad is quite clean with its propellant farms supporting the main launch pad in itself, and that's really largely there to minimize the amount of infrastructure needed for rapid reuse.
The Rocketlab team at LC3 is one of the best teams that I've ever worked with. The crew that we have here is world-class.
It feels incredible watching it all come together. It feels incredible being part of a company that's in the pursuit of something really ambitious.
The fact that we've got what I think is the greatest team we could ever have, the smartest people, most passionate, hardest working group of people working these problems gives me the confidence that we're gonna get there.
Neutron is critical to the future of Rocketlab as an end-to-end space company. We're bringing a world first of a reusable launch vehicle to the market, and it's an amazing engineering feat.
So the thing that really excites me about how we're going to use Neutron is not just serving the nation with national security. It's things like human spaceflight, which of course is exciting for everybody. But for me personally, what really gets me excited is now I have multi-ton capability to go to other planets.
Okay, that was their video. There is Peter Beck. We got to find Matt Money, bro. And Vince.
Thanks very much, and welcome everybody to LC3, the grand opening. So thanks so much for everybody to make it here today. I know a lot of people traveled a lot of distance. Look, today marks an extraordinary milestone, not just for Rocketlab, but for the future of space access in America. With the opening of Launch Complex 3, we take a major step forward in ensuring resilient and assured space access for the nation, a capability that has never been more critical. I want to thank Governor Glenn Youngkin here today for his unwavering support and for the growth of the Virginia space industry and Rocketlab, and it's an honor to have you here on this special occasion. Also, Secretary of Transportation Shep Miller, and CEO of VSA, Ted Mercer, thank you so much for all your support as well. It's been fantastic to see our partnership grow over the years, and first with Electron and now with Neutron. And we have Congresswoman Kiggins here, so with us as well, whose leadership in DC has been critical to the growth of the space industry. And welcome, Congresswoman. Really great to have you. Also, a special thanks to Senator DeStef and Delegate Bloxham. Thank you very much to have you and your staff here today. It's truly, we appreciate how much you do for the aerospace industry and Wallops in particular. So we also have Acting Director of Goddard Space Flight Center, Cynthia Simmons. So thank you, Cynthia, and Dave Pierce from Wallops as well. Thank you for being here. The relationship between Rocketlab, NASA, and VSA is critical to our combined success, and we really enjoy working with all of you guys. And the relationship has been fantastic. And sincere thanks to many of the other federal and state local leaders that are here, some of our customers and partners. You all play a really critical role in obviously our success. So today is an exciting day. Launch Complex 3 is our commitment to providing assured access to space and the launch site diversity that is needed within the United States. I have to say, in true Rocketlab style, the launch pad behind us is almost an architectural monument. It looks so good. Launch sites are usually these boxy, horrible looking things, but I was not going to have that. We had to have a beautiful launch site. So, what you see behind me is testament to that. And, as we prepare for our next generation rocket, it makes sense that, we have a world-class launch facility, landing facility also. So it's great to see that. Our high cadence reusable launch vehicle Neutron will expand Virginia's capabilities and enable the United States to quickly and reliably reach the International Space Station, Earth orbit, as well as explore the moon and beyond. And I hope one day in the very near future, a Neutron will launch from this pad on its way to Mars. So Neutron. Thank you. And maybe one day Venus too, but we'll go to Mars first. So Neutron is an entirely new kind of rocket, and it's been developed on a really, really rapid timeline to meet the demand for our constellation customers and, of course, high assurance missions for the nation. National security is already well served by Rocketlab from Wallops Island with our Electron launches and our HASTE launches right next door. But with Neutron, we're preparing to set a whole new standard for performance and reliability with our 13-ton class vehicle. As of one of only a handful of launch providers selected by the DoD's highest priority national security missions under the NSSL program, for the very first time, these are going to be launched from Virginia, which will be great. And of course, it's all the people on the ground doing the work who bring an operation like this to life. And first, I want to give a huge thanks to the entire Rocketlab team who have literally slept outside underneath the stars to build this launch pad from scratch. And it's such an impressive piece of infrastructure in such an incredibly short timeline. And of course, a huge thanks to all of the Virginia's talented industrial ecosystem that were standing there with their team, side by side in the middle of the night, making stuff happen. And once again, I want to thank you all for being here to celebrate the opening of this Launch Complex 3 and the site for us. It is going to be one of the nation's most important national assets, and it's going to bring great economic growth and prosperity to Virginia. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to the man with the weight of, quite literally, the weight of Neutron on his shoulders, VP of Launch for Rocketlab, Sean DeMello. Thank you.
Well, what a day. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today to officially open Launch Complex 3 on Mars Pad 0D. This is the fourth launch pad we've built here at Rocketlab, and I'm probably biased, but the launch pads are a beautiful, incredible feat of engineering. I mean, just take a look around. There's 5,000 cubic feet of concrete laid down out here, more than 700 tons of steel that support the critical structures and mechanisms that hold Neutron on the pad before it lifts off. You'll see a bunch of intricate propellant and fluid systems that load the propellant onto the rocket, but also condition it before liftoff. And then all of this is tied together with an electrical and control system that perfectly commands and controls the pad before liftoff and communicates with the rocket. So on top of all of this, these systems then have to survive liftoff, which is basically an inferno, with over 1 million pounds of thrust coming off the back of Neutron. So to achieve all of this, taking on what Pete's mentioned there before in a very short time, it's really been made possible by the really strong teamwork, not just within our teams, but across a number of organizations, and some really strong forged partnerships that extend for a long, long time. So with that, I want to firstly extend my thanks to the Commonwealth of Virginia and the Virginia Spaceport Authority, Governor Youngkin, Congressman Kiggins, Secretary Miller, General Mercer. Thank you for your continued partnership, especially as we work shoulder to shoulder to get this pad built in record time. It's also been amazing to see our partnership grow at the site, from the early days of launching and establishing Electron just outside Launch Complex 3 to now bringing on what is Wallops's biggest orbital lift capacity from right here. And this will support national security space, commercial missions, interplanetary exploration. I mean, how good would it be to get to Mars from Mars? And it's got a good ring to it, right, John Mercer? But eventually, even human spaceflight. I mean, that's all part of our trajectory here with getting Neutron to this launch site. But speaking of astronauts, Governor Youngkin, when you were last year for the groundbreaking, I remember you telling us you wanted to go to space. Just happened to be a bit too tall to make the astronaut class. And Secretary Miller over the years has told me the story time and time again. So I guess gentlemen have taken the hint. We finally have a rocket big enough to get it done right here from Virginia. So, in all seriousness, no, thank you for your continued support and partnership. This has really enabled us to not just establish ourselves here, but really grow with you as well and bring in a lot of high-tech capability to the region. So that's been really, really great. I'd also like to extend my thanks to the NASA team, Casey Swale, Cindy Simmons, Dave Pierce. Thank you for supporting us at this rapid pace of getting this pad online. I think we've successfully stress tested our timelines and requirements for each other, and we've come out pretty successful, I think. Our combined efforts as well to streamline the way we do launch regulatory process out of this pad in tandem with the FAA will be a real nation's first, but also allow us to run a very slick and efficient operation out of the spaceport. And then finally, the Rocketlab team. I really hope you all take a minute or two today to stand back with pride and look at what you've all achieved. It's been incredible to see how hard you've all worked to make this happen, and to bring these systems not just to the pad, but also activate them in really, really quick succession. Your dedication and commitment to the cause and the mission, I think, really has made this possible. And you've even got the deep summer tan, I think, to prove it. So appreciate all the hard work on the pad for many, many months to make this all happen. And then finally, I should say, we really look forward to what's to come here over the next few weeks and months. We can expect a lot of hardware for Neutron coming through, getting tested out at our integration facility where a lot of you all boarded in today, and then brought out to the pad for a number of integrated tests leading up to static fires, and then eventually Neutron's maiden launch. So we're looking forward to it. Thank you once again, and I'll hand you off to General Mercer.
Still don't see Matt Money. It'd be fun if they had him come on stage. But he's got to be there somewhere.
Well, good morning. Good morning to you all. Welcome to Virginia's Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport. This is Virginia's spaceport, and Rocketlab is one of the marvelous customers that we have on our spaceport. We're excited about this event today because this is historic. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. But before I do that, we must acknowledge the support, unwavering support, that dedicated support from the first day of his administration, Governor Glenn Youngkin, from the first day to the current day today, throughout his entire administration. He has been dedicated to support and ensuring that we have the support to build something like that. And the Commonwealth's commitment has been unwavering through our elected officials, many that you see here today, Delegate Bloxham, Senator DeSteff, and others that you've heard named on the Hill, Congresswoman Kiggins. You've heard all these names. These are the reason that exists. Because had we not had that support, this would not be here. This would still be a grass field. So I want to take a moment and put a finer point on that, on how important Governor Youngkin's support and the elected officials have been to get here. Because in the last 18 to 20 months, which is an extraordinary timeline to build a launch pad, but it would not have happened without that support. And I think I would be remiss if I didn't point that out and make sure we're all aware of that. I said that this is historic. It is historic for Virginia. It is historic for the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport because the Neutron will be the largest rocket to date to launch from Mars. It will be capable of lifting some 33,000 pounds to orbit on a single launch. 33,000 pounds to orbit on a single launch. But what's more important is that it will also bring wonderful, high-paying, sustainable jobs to this region. It will enhance economic development to this region, not only because of what it will lift, but because of the supply chain that it will bring with it. You know, you heard the old adage, build it and they will come. They and we have built it, and now they will come. That is the economic development that we will see as a result of this. It's good for the Commonwealth. It's good for Virginia. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to be a part of it. And then lastly, I want to express my appreciation to Peter Beck for having the vision at the time. Remember, this started years ago, to have the vision, to see the potential and the opportunity to come to Virginia. And so I want to applaud you for that. Thank you.
All right, so that's what we got on Rocketlab. If anyone wants to keep watching, I will put the link in the chat, but we heard from 3 of the executives. That guy was exciting, bro. That guy would make me want to buy some more Rocketlab, dude. I mean, you talk about people that can publicly speak and actually inspire an audience. I think that guy has it. So if you want to keep watching it, put the link in the chat right there. Market's relatively flat, guys. We don't have too much action. I mean, I was looking at the headlines while the Rocketlab video was playing. I don't see much happening. We talked about the Google finance stuff. Google did get to all-time highs today. Nvidia still flat. Not much there. Geopolitically, I think we have a Ukraine headline, but nothing too crazy. Yes, Kathy Wood did buy 300,000 shares of BMNR yesterday. Trump just tweeted about Chicago. He said, stay tuned. We have some things coming up to deal with crime in Chicago. And then his pick to be on the Fed governor, or to be in the central bank, looks like it will get approved. But outside of that, I guess the biggest news we had today in terms of crypto was the GDP data on the blockchain. 9 different blockchains, including Bitcoin, were targeted. Chainlink is one of the ones that would be the oracle of those blockchains. Snowflake right here still up 19%. Nubank breaking out. This thing was $11 3 weeks ago. Now it's at 15. So this one making a very nice move. And then Google trying to break above 211. So there you go. You got some greener here. But outside of that, nothing crazy. We're just not seeing a lot of crazy stuff. Nvidia right here, 179. That's down 1.3. Grab 496. AppLovin 478. MongoDB's up 5%. CoreWeave's up 7. CoreWeave is getting, I know CoreWeave sold off from 150, but CoreWeave is getting the move today. Nvidia is not. Again, Nvidia topped out today at $184.47, which the all-time high is $184.48. I'm not selling Nubank. I sold my Nubank at around 13. For those that held, Nubank doing very well now in the 15 range. I know Tanner, this is like a top 5 position for him in his portfolio. So he's been in this name for a very long time. Micron right here, 121, and then the S&P literally flat, 646. We did get to 648, then we went to 643. Now we're at 646. Not making a move up or down. Solana, is that one moving today? Solana is up 3%. Solana over the past week has, I think, made a bit of a move along with Ethereum. So it's up 4% today over the past 7 days. Yeah, I mean, it was at 180. Now it's at 215. This thing was at $9 back at the bottom of 2022, and now it's at 215. I think at one point it got to 300. So Solana's made a very strong move. Again, Solana, conventionally seen as the blockchain for meme coins. There's a lot more that's a part of it, but a lot of the coins, like the Trump coin, the Melania coin, all that stuff is launched on Solana. But I would imagine there's more use cases as well that the market is excited about. Oklo, Broadcom's having a good day. Oklo as well. Wow, up 6%. Dude, every energy data center and big semiconductor play, like a Broadcom or an Oracle or an Oklo, are having great days because of Nvidia. Oracle at 240, but Nvidia not having a great day. And to me, that's actually kind of bullish. Nvidia kind of just chilling out right here, but creating the framework for all these other companies to catch a bid. That just means inevitably Nvidia catches a bid. But the day after earnings, that is not what we're seeing. So that went down 1.3%. Yeah, GEV, how's that one doing? Is that screen? Wow, that one's, yeah, literally. It is every name that benefits from the tailwind of Nvidia besides Nvidia. But Nvidia's already worth 4.3 trillion, so you can't complain too much. Even Nebius is up 2% because of those. I mean, if you're a Nebius shareholder, you don't look at those Nvidia earnings and say, I'm selling my Nebius. I mean, you get excited to buy more. So it seems like as a macro tailwind for all the AI names, they're doing all right. Ethereum 4,500, Bitmine's up about 1.2%. XLF financials are up a little bit. Lemonade's up 1%. MP Materials, that's up 2.65. Snowflake still up 18, and then Crowd, is that still green? That one goes green, 2.3 after going red yesterday. Yeah, all of your data center plays. All right, let's make a playlist right here so we can keep track of this. So let's call this playlist data centers, which will include some energy. So we'll do Oklo in here. We'll do VRT. We'll do VST. We'll do CEG. We can only have 16 of them. We'll do SMR. We'll put nano nuclear in there. Iran. We'll put Iran there. Iran is up today. Iran's up 4%. Iran's got earnings today after the battles. That'll be a big one. We'll see what they can put on earnings. We'll put CoreWeave in there. BE, Bloom Energy. Yeah, Celestica probably should go there. Wolf, we can put that one there. Google just took a stake in those guys. APLD, put those guys in there. GEV. You see how every time I add a name, it's green? It's like, oh, Nebius, all of these are green on the day. All of them. Cypher, yeah, that one. Dude, where is CleanSpark? Because a lot of these Bitcoin miners have found a new life outside of CleanSpark. This list is for a data center energy infrastructure plays. And as you can see, all of them, literally all of them are up. The only one that's up only 1% is Applied Digital. And then Wolf's up 2%. Everything else is up 4 to 7% today. Which is pretty incredible. Yeah, we can put Energy Fuels. We looked at that one yesterday. That's up another 2.2%. I mean, you're seeing a lot of momentum in these names. And a lot of it's being led from NVIDIA. The actual semis themselves, a little bit of a mixed bag. ASML's red, Broadcom's green, TSM's red, Lam Research is red, Dell is green, Micron's green, AMD is slightly green. And then NVIDIA back to 180. Trying to crack 185, which would be our all-time highs. So that is what we got. Western Union, I don't know if it's worth investing in. I brought it up yesterday because the insiders are buying. I've not taken a position. I've barely done any due diligence on this, but yeah, that one is red on the day. Zeta, I know this one's becoming a retail favorite as well for a lot of people. Zeta is down 2% on the day. Zeta's up though for the year, if I'm not wrong. Zeta year to date, yeah, it's up 4%. From the bottoms, it's from 11 to it's almost doubled from 11 in April to 20 now. This one's more like an AI play, not necessarily a data center play. Oh, we got some news from Apple right here. Apple has secured TSMC production for iPhone 18. Apple has locked up nearly half of TSMC's initial 2-nanometer chip production capacity for the iPhone 18 as the foundry begins mass production in Q4 2025. Dude, I don't know what the heck Apple's going to show us in the event, which is going to be, what is it? It's going to be September 9th. I would imagine it'll be something good, but if that iPhone is just not that exciting, I feel like it could be a little underwhelming for Apple. So we are going to have to see, but we will get that data pretty soon. Let's get a little bit more of an update on NVIDIA, and then we'll keep going from there.
And on this reaction by the street to the report, Christina.
Yeah, you mentioned the stock drop after NVIDIA beat on multiple, and it has multiple culprits. The Q3 guide might have missed buy-side whispers by $1 billion. Operating expenses came in a touch higher than people wanted, and data center sales missed for 2 consecutive quarters, partly from losing China market share. But this could just be profit-taking after a 30% 3-month run in the stock. The demand story stays intact. Blackwell chip sales jumped 17% sequentially with, quote, extraordinary demand, according to the CEO. He also expects AI companies to spend roughly $3 to $4 trillion over 5 years, with NVIDIA capturing potentially 70% of that.
Wall Street, though, mixed. A lot of reports out. At least 10 analysts this morning that I just counted hiked their targets. But JP Morgan sees data center growth continuing. Goldman expects, quote, meaningful upside into 2026. But others are a little more cautious. HSBC warns, quote, of limited room for further earnings upside or share price catalyst near term without clarity on 2026 spending. Morgan Stanley notes the stock is selling off, quote, certainly indicates that sentiment has caught up to growth potential. China, of course, remains a wild card that CEO Jensen teased, quote, the opportunity to bring Blackwell to China is a real possibility. We just have to keep advocating. In other words, lobbying the government. So if those export restrictions ease, China could provide the next major growth catalyst NVIDIA needs to keep this momentum going. But we have to highlight that growth is decelerating, guys.
Christina, we gave you a shout out in the 9 a.m. talking about customer concentration, large percentages of accounts receivable being from a few customers. You obviously found that notable enough to mention.
Yeah, and I definitely got a lot of comments online. So it's 56%, like you mentioned, 3. One of the top customers is contributing 23%, and it's these large hyperscalers. The bulls will argue, hey, that's great. These companies have billions of dollars. NVIDIA is giving them chips first because they have the demand. And don't worry, if one of those companies like Microsoft or Meta decides to pull back, there's such insatiable demand elsewhere that they can easily fill it from the enterprise side, from the neo cloud side, from the sovereign wealth or sovereign AI side. And then you have the bears that are saying, guys, shouldn't we care that NVIDIA is catering to just a few customers? So it's the big debate right now, especially online in regards to that tweet.
It's a fair debate because if you're bearish and you say those customers are all going to unilaterally pull back and NVIDIA does not have the capacity to diversify their revenues from the hyperscalers to anyone else, then yeah, growth slows down pretty quickly. But if you think the hyperscalers are not slowing down anytime soon, which again, it's a reasonable thing to assume they're going to slow down. It's unreasonable to predict it's going to happen in the next year, given what we heard on earnings. And unless the earnings were fabricated in terms of the way the CEO spoke about AI, or we get into a recession, right? And then they can't afford to be buying all these GPUs because they need to watch out for their margins, then it changes the entire dynamic of it. But it doesn't look like Zuck's is slowing down, or Nadella is slowing down, or Jassy is slowing down, or Sundar is slowing down. And if that's not the case, then Altman, Elon are not slowing down. These guys are trying to get millions of GPUs as quickly as possible. Like we're talking about, I mean, like the bears are talking about there's a demand issue. Dude, there's a supply problem more than there's a demand problem. And Jensen made that very clear yesterday in terms of the amount of capacity they have via TSMC to even deliver these chips in the first place. So I don't know. It doesn't feel that scary, but I guess there are arguments out there for why people theoretically could be worried about it. After every quarter, bears come out to short NVIDIA. Then 3 months later, they keep going up because the narrative is too strong to short it. Rango says the dumbest thing is customer concentration risk. The hyperscalers are not buying for themselves. They're buying for their startups or their companies who is using their infrastructure. That is a very good point. And Jensen mentioned that yesterday as well. He said the level of AI funding for these startups, NVIDIA back to 180, is like almost 250 billion this year or something like that. And so all of these startups need to buy cloud computing with AI workloads from GCP, AWS, Microsoft. So Google's not buying GPUs just for themselves. Obviously, they have parts of their business that desperately need GPUs, like Nano, like the Banana and Nano thing. But they also have a lot of startups that buy cloud from them, startups that are running models. Theoretically, they could be running Gemini in the background, and they need more cloud. And as a result, you need more GPUs. So it's like, if all these startups, which a lot of them will fail, but the ones that do become the next Google one day, if they're the ones that are needing all this compute, then the hyperscalers are going to have to keep buying it because they make money off of it, right? They're getting the ROI from the CapEx that they're spending in the first place. It's like hyperscalers are not going to say no to profits. The faster they bring GPUs, the more money the hyperscalers can make. Yeah, like if you're starting an app right now, let's say you're starting like a finance app, and your finance app, the idea is someone goes to your website, you type in NVIDIA, and you can ask the chatbot questions about NVIDIA. That needs to be powered by something, whether it's Gemini, Claude, GPT, whatever it may be. So you are a startup, you are licensing the API from, let's call it GPT. And let's say your startup gets like 5 million users and people are typing in 50,000 questions a day about stocks inside of some chatbot, and they're paying you $10 a month. Well, you're going to have to pay a lot of money, even though you're making $500,000 a month from your users, to be able to handle all the workloads of people typing in queries into your chatbot that's powered via some API inside of an LLM. And that's where the hyperscalers need to be able to have the data centers and the infrastructure to be able to support you as a startup using their cloud computing, and they'd be buying more GPUs. So yeah, not all startups need this kind of stuff, but the ones that are raising money from an AI angle likely would need it. Yes, I do have a position in BMNR. I bought in 2 days ago. Average is like 48.90 or 49. It's like low 49s now. I averaged down yesterday. And so I'm in it, and I'm selling covered calls at 52 for this week. BMNR right here is up 1.89%. This is Jensen yesterday as well, talking about why China is so important. Again, the breaking news this morning was that, hey, maybe there's a world in which China can actually get the $50 billion, or NVIDIA can get the $50 billion of revenue from China. But here's Jensen talking more about it yesterday.
For a while, these American AI technologies are stuck in limbo, and so now we're getting the engine fired back up again. And so I'm looking forward to, and I hope that the China market and the Chinese government will allow American technology companies to be able to sell to the Chinese customers. There's a lot of demand there, although there's a lot of alternatives there. The China AI technology companies are really good, as I mentioned. We can be very competitive. You know, as you're talking about America's technology industry. It is our national treasure. It is incredibly competitive, and we have every opportunity to succeed in China market if they would allow for American technology companies to be able to play there. And so I'm hoping that things will get sorted out. I believe there's a lot of demand for H20. The CUDA ecosystem is really vibrant in China. We've been there for a very long time, and so we can add a lot of value if we can get back in. And so, anyways, we've now taken care of we've now been approved to and licensed to be able to ship to China. Now we're looking for orders in China, and I'm hoping for it. If it doesn't happen, of course, we've already guided to another record quarter next quarter, and the China business would be a bonus on top of that. But hopefully, we'll be able to address that 50 billion, growing very fast AI market long term. Really important for the United States.
So Jensen's saying, dude, even if we don't get it, we're going to be great. But if we do get it, you guys are going to see almost a $60 billion quarter. This was him yesterday talking about his relationship with the Trump administration as well.
No, and it hasn't really come up. I think the President Trump and his administration wants to make America great. In all of my conversations with him, it's 100% there. It's about reindustrializing the United States because we need to have manufacturing here. We need to be able to manufacture critical technology here. We want to have a manufacturing economy here. And that vision for reindustrializing the United States is a wonderful vision, and we should get all behind it, and NVIDIA is all behind it. The second vision that we're part of is to help the United States. He wants America to win the AI race. It is the most consequential technology of all time. This is the beginning of a new industrial revolution. This technology will be the foundation technology for the next, several decades, the next century. And it's the most consequential thing that could drive productivity, industrial advance, social advance. And he understands that. And he wants America to win the AI race. And so when we speak to him, most of the conversations are really just centered around those navigates around those two topics, where it ends up at those two topics all the time. And he's singularly focused on helping the United States and helping America be great again. And so I've always enjoyed the conversation with the administration. They're very constructive. They're trying to help. They have a great sense of urgency, which I love. And I can't say enough great things about it.
Jensen, I want to ask one more question on the
nerdy side. Obviously, NVIDIA started out as gaming, still a huge gaming company. You guys build the chip that goes into the Nintendo Switch, the Nintendo and Switch 2. The Nintendo Switch 2 is selling like gangbusters at this point, beating out the original sales. There's obviously your own chips. How does the gaming market demand look right now? Obviously, we're going into next year. We're going to see Grand Theft Auto coming out. That's probably going to be on PC at some point. That'll get more people buying more chips. How does that market look at this point for you guys?
As you know, NVIDIA's gaming GPUs brought CUDA to the world. It was on GeForce, the back of GeForce, that we brought CUDA to the world and revolutionized computing. It was GeForce that made possible the AI revolution. And now what's amazing is AI is coming back to revolutionize GeForce for gaming. And this last quarter, I think we had a record quarter for gaming between GeForce and Nintendo Switch. As you know, Nintendo Switch 1 is completely revolutionary. I'm really proud of it. It is this highest grossing, highest selling game console in history. It's just utterly unimaginable, the success of Switch 1. Switch 2, off to an enormous start, even more successful, I think, than the Switch 1 started. And you could just imagine how far it's going to go. I'm proud of Switch 2. I'm proud of Switch 1. We did several things. We designed a revolutionary SoC, like revolutionary computer chip that delivers incredible ray tracing capability, incredible AI and AI rendering capability we call neural rendering. And we do it in a little tiny power envelope. It's really amazing that the frame rate of Nintendo Switch 2 is so silky smooth. You don't feel any frames anymore. And so the technology is really refined, really polished, and the images that it's generating is so incredibly beautiful. We use neural rendering. It's amazing. We compute a few pixels, and then we use AI to predict, to generate a whole bunch of pixels. And as a result, we save a lot of energy. We produce really beautiful images. And so I'm just really proud of the gaming business. We're really passionate about it. Very few people ask me about it these days, but I'm really grateful that you do. I'm just incredibly proud of Switch and incredibly proud of GeForce.
I got to tell you real quick, Cyberpunk looks amazing on it. I think that just knocked people out of their socks because of that. But Jensen, we wanted to thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dude, I mean, we barely talk about gaming. We barely talk about Nintendo, but I mean, that is such a small vertical compared to data centers, even though that is something that obviously could grow a lot more as Nintendo sells more Switches. It's incredible. This is a company that has their ecosystem of technology in every single sector of not only the world, but where the world is going. And I think that's why they likely continue to go higher. But today, the stock is down, even if its derivatives are up. NVIDIA right here, 179.47, down about 1.17%. Cosmo, thanks for the $50 super chat. Look into gold leaps. Gold price could be a good hedge against the US dollar. Gold has had a really good year, so I definitely don't hate gold as a hedge. I mean, it is up 30% this year. My only concern with gold as a asset class is that when rates come down, I wonder if people easily get excited for gold. Now, if rates come down because there is an economic problem, then people will flock into gold, right? Because there's a side of the economic school of thought that says rate cuts are bearish, which technically they are, but in the context of the earnings growth that we have, I think rate cuts are more bullish. And so maybe people go to gold. The other argument is risk on assets catch a massive bid, and gold is not necessarily risk on, even though it's acted like it's risk on all year, up 30%. And what gets a bid is digital gold, not actual gold. So I am very curious to see when the rate cut actually goes into place, what happens? How does the market react? Rocketlab right here, 46.41. Realistically, if we stay flat because the market's already priced for a rate cut, that wouldn't surprise me. But if we do get that cut, maybe that's a catalyst for Open Door to explode. Open Door right here, 440, it's up 10%. Maybe the rate cut really takes it higher, along with a new CEO. Maybe that helps Ethereum. Maybe that helps Hoodie. Maybe that helps NVIDIA in and of itself, just based on growth stocks getting a higher premium. So September 17th, we're really going to see how the market interprets the rate cut. If we get the rate cut, which I think if we wouldn't, that would be bad. But Seems like we should get it in mid-September. Where is the dollar, by the way? The dollar, 97. Dollar's been stuck at 97 for like the past 2 weeks. Right now it's at 97.94. So the low dollar from 115 in January, although it has been a concern for some people, it doesn't seem like Trump is the most concerned about it either. 10 years at 4.2. I mean, this thing was at 4.8 at one point in April. I mean, it's just not the craziest to see some of these things come back down. And if you have the earnings growth, I think the market can be ready to interpret things as being more bullish than not. Hood has been good for day trading lately. Yeah, dude, a lot of these stocks have been good for day trading. They've been stuck in a range. And as a day trader, all you want is a predictable range you can trade in and out of. But again, we just can't be that greedy, right? Like Hood's at 100, as much as I think it should be at 120. It was at 30 5 months ago. Palantir was at 60 5 months ago. So it's like Nvidia was at 90 5 months ago. Like, I want Nvidia to be at 190, but I also don't think it needs to get there. So I think it's kind of a wait and see moment until we get rate cuts and then we head into Q3 earnings. But today will be a big day after the bell, so I think we'll end up the show here. After the bell, we've got a lot going on. Dell, Marvell, Affirm, Ulta, Iren, Autodesk, Gap, and Webull. And there's probably a couple other companies I'm not mentioning, but those already are some pretty massive earnings. We got fintech, we got semiconductors, we got makeup, we got finance. Where's Webull? This one, I'm sure people still own this name. Webull, $14, kind of basically where it was when I sold it back in July. It did run up to 18 at one point, then came back down to 12, now back at 14. So we're going to see what earnings these companies can put up. Firm's also a big one. Firm, I really like that company. Max Levchin, great founder. Firm's up 27% this year. So Dell, we really want to see these stocks have good earnings. Marvell, I think, is up year to date a decent amount. Never mind, that's down 30% year to date. It's up from the lows of April, but still down 30%. So that one could be, I mean, that one, if they report anything good, down 30% into the print, maybe that one pops. And then Dell is up 15% year to date. So that one hopefully can get a pop as well if they have some good numbers as well. All right. There you go. There you go. Brad Gerstner tweeted about NVIDIA. Okay, let's see what Brad Gerstner said real quick, and then we'll end it out here. I think Altimeter still owns NVIDIA, if I'm not wrong. Oh, he just tweeted it. Brad Gerstner says, now is a critical time for the U.S. government to accelerate U.S. AI companies to rapidly expand and compete around the world, including NVIDIA chips in China. Ceding China and its massive AI ecosystem to Huawei and dragging our feet on licenses will only hand more market share to China AI stack around the world. Yeah, I agree. David Sachs pretty much saying the exact same thing, that the U.S. government should help our American AI companies win this global competition. Dude, this is becoming obvious. David Sachs, AI czar. Trump already said this a couple of weeks ago. Jensen said he's been having conversations with Trump. Brad Gerstner saying we need to sell chips to China. NVIDIA is going to get the export controls to be able to be removed to sell to China. And they're going to do tens and tens of billions of dollars in revenue in China. Now, the one concern I heard some people say is, okay, wait a second. What if they give China Blackwell and then China figures out how to re-architect Blackwell because they steal, this is what China does, right? They like figure out how to copy it. Like, sure, maybe that can happen. I think the sophistication of the architecture of Blackwell is not easy to replicate. But let's say China does replicate it. Okay, so NVIDIA doesn't grow 50% in China. NVIDIA grows 25% or 30%, which I'm being very dramatic right there with that decline because of China copying the GPU. Sure. But then what happens to Vera Rubin? What happens to the next generation after Blackwell? You're still going to need that one too. And so China's still going to have to buy that stuff. And then the time that it takes for them to copy that, and then the next generation after that, so it's like at some point, the China revenues are going to be so substantial that even with the intellectual property risk that is there, even with a 15% cut with the US government that is there, it's hard to imagine this being that bearish for NVIDIA. So we're gonna see how this ends up playing out. Amit, you need a full day show, maybe someone to fill in the stream when you take a break or go on trips, dude. And going into September, there's a couple of trips we're taking. Unfortunately, we're gonna miss the market open on a couple of days in September, early September too. Definitely for the Hood Summit, like September 9th, we can't do the market open because I'll be in Vegas. And then there's another trip in September that I haven't told you guys about yet, but that one we need a co-host that can do this when I'm gone. But they got to bring the energy, dude. They got to bring the energy. That's the biggest thing about someone else doing the show. You got to have an energy to be able to manage it. There's also a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of news. I think one of the things about this show is that, or at least one of the things I take pride in, is that it's really dynamic, you know? So like we try to get to every single piece of news. And over the past couple of days outside of NVIDIA, there hasn't been that much. Really over the past couple of weeks, market wasn't moving that much. So there wasn't that much news because we waited for Powell and now we're waiting for NVIDIA. But usually on a regular day, given this is the stock market we're in, there's like 17,000 things happening all at once. And being able to navigate all those things all at once and spend a little bit of time on each one and bring it all together, that stuff is kind of the hard part about this. But it's really fun. And you just got to be able to work through it. S&P 500 right there, 647 going green. Hoodie going green as well. And then NVIDIA trying to go green at 180. But they're not letting it go green yet. Dude, Steve, oh my goodness. The problem with Steve is, the other thing about this job is you need to have a little bit of a thick skin, right? So Steve would see one comment calling him a moron or something. Because I've been on, when I've been on live with Steve before, I can tell when his eyes are looking at the comments and he gets zeroed in on a negative comment. And then I try to ask him a question and he just doesn't want to talk about anything other than the negative comment. You can't do that when you're live. Because like you'll have tons of, random people say negative comments. So Steve will see one comment say, Steve, you're a moron for comparing Costco to NVIDIA. He'll spend 2 hours building an Excel model. He'll forget the market's even open. And he'll try to respond to that person. A lot of it is rage bait at the end of the day, dude. Like that's just like a thing. Like people say stuff just to see how you react. Tanner would be perfect. Tanner actually would be, I think Tanner would be able to do it. Tanner's going to be at the Vegas event with me, so he won't be able to do it in September. But Tanner, I legit think would admit you're a moron for not buying more BMNR. There you go. There you go. Tanner definitely would be able to do it. Kristen, thank you for becoming a channel member. Appreciate it. Thank you for being here. And thank you for becoming a channel member as well. Maybe we got to get Tanner to do it one day. I think Tanner basically does, he doesn't do a market open, market close, but he does like a show on his channel every day at like 8 o'clock, which is covering the news of the day. So I think Tanner actually would be perfect to fill in one day and do it. Oh, EU proposes tariff cut to implement EU-US deal. Commission says moves aim to secure US relief for EU auto sector retroactive to August 1st. Okay, this is following up with what the EU said yesterday, which is that they are getting ready to establish the terms of the agreement that was determined 2 weeks ago between the United States and the US on tariffs. It looks like the EU wants to get this done. India and Brazil want to fight it, but the EU is legit trying to get this tariff negotiation with the United States into place and move forward. And if that makes the auto tariffs from August 1st retroactive, that's actually really good for the European Union. And that's not horrible for the auto companies as well inside of Europe. So that seems bullish. If we can just get a couple more deals, we don't got to get every country. If we can get a couple more countries to give us a deal by the end of the year, I think that helps with 7,000 S&P. We got to see if we can do that. Chris is on vacation. His birthday is very soon. His wife got him a 40th. So that 40th surprise birthday for Chris is why he is going to be gone for the next couple weeks. But he should be back hopefully soon. I was on the phone with Chris yesterday. Chris wants to come back on the show, but the other thing about YouTube that's important to understand is that it is a new world when you have thousands of people saying something about you and you have to deal with their opinions, right? So Chris is not a content creator per se. He creates content, but he doesn't do this full time. And so when the whole Alex Carp Palantir thing happened, he got a lot of hate for it, right? And that affects you as a person. It's a lot of people just saying stuff against you. It's stuff that can take a toll on your mental. You know, so and again, everyone has their moments. I have my moment. He has his moments, and so like that kind of makes you want to just like chill out a bit from the internet when you have that many random strangers saying stuff about you, and you kind of just gotta reclaim your sanity when that stuff happens. So that's the other thing about this thing. I mean, and you know, I'm doing it at a small scale. Imagine Tom Lee. You know, Tom Lee, the amount of shit people talk about, he gets a lot of love, but he also gets a lot of shit by a lot of people. You know. And so, and he's very public and he's on hundreds of podcasts every single month. So you have to have a really thick skin to deal with it and be able to keep going forward and just trust like that the authenticity of the core audience that cares about you is there. But sometimes having a break from that is not a horrible thing. And so, yeah, Chris took a break for the past couple of weeks. I'm happy he's going on vacation, but he should be back next week. And then he'll be back on the show. Now, Steve doesn't care about what Steve doesn't care about what anyone says. So Steve, although he'll fight with you if he sees your comment because it's going to be hard for him to ignore it. He does not care about anyone else's opinion of him. He really went at it with Joe. Dude, they were up at 2 a.m. tweeting this stuff, going back and forth. Back and forth. I mean, look at this. Look at this. Joseph said, look at this. Joseph asked 5 questions. When did Steve respond to these questions? It was 12:15 a.m. Steve puts out like 3-paragraph responses to all these questions. I mean, they went back and forth about this Costco Nvidia thing. So Steve can argue. It's just when you're live, you don't have time to say all this stuff to one comment, you know? And that's kind of the difference. What is resistance for SoFi to get to 26? Let me check. Is Dan Ives on CNBC? Is he talking NVIDIA? I would like to see what he has to say. SoFi 26 BMNRs at 46.36. I know Dan Ives is not live. He was probably live in the morning. Are we close to 26? Oh, wow, we are. 25.90. That could happen. I did buy some shares at 26 on Monday. 76,000 shares. 76,000 shares for SoFi on 26. Everyone that's in public gets a lot of shit, sometimes for random stuff. Yeah. Yeah, dude, it is what I've noticed that as well, dude. Like as you grow as a creator and as a brand, it's like you really, you know how parents try to protect their kids from like the dark parts of humanity and try to maintain their innocence. As you grow your brand, you realize there's a lot of people are not as nice as you would think, right? And you kind of remember what your parents told you when you were younger, which is like the world is just not a nice place. And you'll see people say some stuff and you're just like, it's part of the game. It's part of the game. And I mean, like, you know, I'm talking about it on my scale. Like, you can imagine Elon and Zucks and Buffett and all these people that are so larger than life in terms of their brands and personalities, the amount of shit they have to deal with. I think the only way that you can navigate going forward is if you're desensitized to what people say, not because you don't care about what they say, but because you believe in what you're doing. Yes, I still hold Misty. I still have 500 shares of Misty. But if you don't believe in what you're doing, like I've noticed the most times I'm self-conscious of what other people are saying is if I posted something or I'd said something that A, I know is wrong, or B, I didn't believe in actually saying. Like I said it in a way that's like not actually the way I wanted to communicate that. But if you're being yourself and someone doesn't like you, it is what it is. Like, you know, the world's not going to like you. And you just have to kind of stay authentic to that. But the world is big, you know? Everyone's going to have different opinions. Amit, what are your thoughts on SBET? I like it. I mean, I'm buying BMNR, but I think all these ETH treasuries, if you believe in ETH, I think they're going higher. I really do. I think Steve will be on probably Friday tomorrow. Dude, it's already Friday. It's already Thursday. I can't believe that. But it feels like I just got back from Miami like on Monday, right? So it's like 4 days just went right by. But Steve should be on the show tomorrow, either on the open or the close, probably the close. And he's going to give a deeper ETH thesis. For those that haven't read his article, he's already written about BMNR and SBET over the past 2 weeks. And he's very bullish on both because he's super bullish on Ethereum. This is his SBET article. I'll share it right here in the chat. But yeah, he should be on tomorrow, and we'll hear what he has to say about Ethereum as well. If you weren't bullied as a kid, you probably don't have a thick enough skin to do this job. That is fair. Now, I wouldn't say I was bullied as a kid, but I did grow up in Newark, New Jersey. And if anyone knows Newark, New Jersey, if you go to school in Newark, let's just say it's not a suburb where all the kids are super nice. I mean, like it's one of those areas where it's like you got to defend yourself in the lunchroom because you're gonna get roasted, bro. Like I learned how to roast when I was in like 5th grade, and it carried through. I mean, dude, 7th grade, I started getting a beard in 7th grade. I had hair on my voice was cracking. Like you had to get ready to deal with what people would say. Yeah, Fungi knows. He's from Trenton. There you go. You got to be ready for it, bro. You got to be ready for it. I mean, dude, you guys make the Amit looks like a terrorist jokes. Dude, I was getting that in 7th grade, bro. I was like, Amit, what did Osama tell you last night? It's like, dude, I was getting that shit in 7th. So you had to know how to fight back. You had to know how to fight back. And you couldn't get that affected by it too. I think that's also why I can make fun of myself because like, first of all, it's never that serious. Second of all, it's like, dude, I grew up dealing with learning how to roast and defend yourself. And so if you take it that seriously, when someone makes fun of you, you're not going to make it through life. And yeah, North Jersey, you better be ready to deal with the roast. And dude, everyone got it. It didn't matter if you were black, if you were white, if you were Hispanic, Indian, Mexican. It didn't matter what race you were getting roasted in that cafeteria. And you just had to learn how to deal with it and navigate it. Brick City. Brick City. All right, I think that's it for me, folks. Let me get word of the day, and then we'll be out of here. We have a big market close today with a lot of different companies, lots of different sectors, lots of different verticals. So we're going to get into it. Amit, you have to wear your jersey top again and look like your grandma. Thank you. Dude, I need to wear the Palantir jersey. I showed you guys the Palantir jersey that someone got me. I need to wear that over a hoodie. That would be great. Word of the day is Karak.
Karak.
Of course. Why not? Why not? Like, the part that annoys me about this? You see the U and the H right here? Karak, right? Like, you can't, I literally, I phonetically, I was like, oh, Karak. U-H-K, Karak. And now it's Karak.
Karak.
This is stupid, bro. Like, the English language is genuinely stupid. A merchant vessel having various rigs. Cartographers sketched a carrack alongside the old trade route. The captain inspected the carrack's multiple masts before setting sail. Okay, what does this even look like? This is it's one of these. Okay. Well, I guess it's not an UH, even though it's a ACK, but it sounds like a UH. Do you remember the day of the words? No, dude, I can't even tell you the word of the day yesterday. Like I forget them so often. We need to find a way that I can actually use them every day, but I forget them all the time. All of the time. Oh, Siege, by the way, I got your Siege. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the super chat. I got your Las Vegas Sands chip. So shout out to Siege. He was at the meetup. And there is his chip. This is a chip he gave me. It's his lucky chip. This was his first 20 bagger on Las Vegas Sands, the stock. So appreciate it, man. This is awesome. Super cool that you got me this, and I will be bringing it to the new apartment as well. So we'll be looking at that. So there you go. Okay, so that is it, guys. One last thing I'll say is the new apartment stream is going to be happening on September 1st, and that'll be happening. So there's a couple announcements. Number one is September stream. There's 2 streams happening on September 1st. The first one, which is Labor Day, the market's closed, is Technical Tuesday. Technical Tuesday, we didn't get to do on Tuesday because I couldn't speak. So Jason's going to come on in the morning. It'll kind of be like a replacement of the Market Open stream. So it won't really be like Market Open, but we'll go through a bunch of technicals. And that'll be the first stream on Monday. So for those that do care about technicals, we will have a stream now that earnings season is done to cover the technicals on Monday. Number 2 is that the actual apartment stream introducing the new background will probably be, call it 8 p.m. that day on Monday. So if you're there on Monday, if you have nothing to do on Labor Day, then you can come through and we'll be showing off the new background. And then number 3 is I wanted Steve to be a part of that new stream on Monday in the apartment. And he was about to come through. Like he said yes, and he was going to be there in person. I was going to surprise you guys, but unfortunately, his wife has COVID. And so it would be too much of a risk for him to come through to the stream and, risk giving me COVID because he doesn't even know if he has COVID yet. But I tried to get Steve to be there in person. He was ready to do it. And then yesterday night, he texted like, dude, my wife has COVID. So he's not allowed to leave the house for like the next week anyway. So yeah, we will get Steve in person eventually and do the stream because that'll be a fun one. That'll be the amount of comments that are going to rage bait Steve in person are going to be hilarious. But unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do it on the apartment stream. Okay, and final thing I wanted to say right here, I've been doing some thinking over the past couple of days, and this is something that I think some people will disagree with. I think the majority of you guys will agree with, but I've been really thinking about it now that we're getting close to officially moving in. I think the majority of you guys probably will agree with this, but I probably do not want to show the entirety of my apartment. I kind of just want to show the background of what the new stream will look like. And the reasoning behind this is now that I'm getting ready to move in, I kind of just want some privacy between like my home space and my workspace. And I know I said I would do an apartment tour before. I guess I was very excited a couple weeks ago, but now I'm just like, I think it makes more sense to like not show off every part of my home to the entire world, given I share so much with you guys anyway, and keep that kind of reserved for me. So I know that's going to suck because I've hyped up the view, and let me tell you, the view is, dude, I was there for 5 hours the other day. I was sitting on the couch just looking out the window, and I was like, dude, I'm on the clouds right now. Like, this is like, it's actually crazy. But I don't think I should show it because at the end of the day, I kind of need to protect my own privacy as well. And I think it's fair. Like, I don't show my portfolio size. I think, because you got to protect your net worth, protect your privacy. Same thing with a house. I think it makes the most sense. And I think a lot of you guys would agree with that. Most people probably would want someone to stay safe and not violate that situation with their privacy. So I really thought about it for the past couple of days because now that I'm moving into the apartment, I'm thinking of like content and how it's going to look like. And as I was really thinking of it, I was like, dude, probably doesn't make sense to give that much of myself to the public. There's got to be some parts of yourself that you keep private to yourself, given I am so public with everything else. And, my home would be one of the things that I would want to keep out there. So, yeah, I think most of you guys are agreeing right here in the chat because the dentist is moving. That is also true. So yeah, the background I can say is going to be pretty cool. And I'm finishing it up on Saturday and Sunday, and it's going to be dope. But showing off my actual home, I'm just like, it didn't make much sense to it. It's like also honestly, it's not even designed or decorated. There's just a couch, and there's a lot more work to be done. But I think realistically, there should be a boundary between privacy and like your actual work. Like, I don't think any of you guys have ever seen any part of my house outside of this background, which is a good thing, right? Like, there's like, you don't need to. And at the end of the day, that is something that should be more private between a creator and their audience. So yeah, it's not even my house. I'm renting as well. So it's not even my place. I have seen the sticker. Dude, Chad, I was unboxing the TV 2 days ago. Let's just say there will be a photo posted of that TV, just the TV alone, and you're going to get a tag when that TV is posted. And you might see something on the TV. That's all. You might see something on the TV. That's all I'm saying. Nice little Roku 55-inch that has something attached to it at the top left-hand corner. So you might see that. But yeah, there you go. That's what we'll do. So I think that's how it'll play out. But I do think the background's going to be really fun. I've been working on a lot of designs this whole week. I've been going back and forth to the apartment. So it will be a new design from whatever you have right here, because I do want to spice things up. But the rest of the home we will keep private. I got to leave the plastic on my TV as well. Yes, that's a good idea. That is also a good idea. All right, I think that's it. I think that is it. Sumit, you do not have to send the super chat. Very, very grateful for that. Thank you for the $200 for your new chair at your new home. You guys have just been unbelievably kind over the past month. I mean, people sending gifts and super chats, and the amount of gifts I got from the Miami meet. Like, my mom could not believe it, bro. My mom was like, are people really giving you these gifts? And I was just like, yeah. And she was like, so does everyone at a meetup have to give you a gift? I'm like, no one has a meetup to give me a gift. Like, that's not some required thing, but like, people that have been watching for years, they want to express some form of gratitude. Like, I get it. And so it really means a lot. It really, 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 really means a lot. And yeah, I will be using all this stuff to make sure the apartment is well decorated. And a lot of these gifts, we're going to make sure we come into the background. Like the currently right now light up sign, that's going to be so much cool. That's going to be so much fun seeing it in the background. It's just going to look so dope. And then little knickknacks like this are going to be super dope. I mean, there's so many things right here. Have I showed you guys this? This is a signed Palantir hat by Mr. Alex Karp. We got to figure out the right place to put this in the apartment. But this is because of Ileano. Like, there's just so many different things. You see that right there? That's the first Robinhood creator pass. That's the first AIPCon pass that I had. Like, just little things that 10 years from now, are going to mean so much when we look back on them. So should be fun. Should be fun. Thank you, Sumit, for the super chat. Deeply appreciate it. And thank you for being here. Yeah, dude, maybe we frame the hat, because I'm never going to wear the hat. So maybe we frame it one day. Maybe that's what we got to do. I got to get a lot of pictures too, dude. All these pictures from the meetup, I want to blow them up and frame them as well. And we have 5 meetups so far. I want to have 5. I want to have a row on the wall of just 5, and maybe it turns into 10, 20 pictures over the coming years of these different meetups. But being able to have these memories, I think is really freaking cool. And so should be dope. Should be a fun time. All right, that's it. Thank you, everybody. Means a lot. We will be back tonight on the market close. And then we will again have the apartment stream on Monday. It will officially be moving in. I'm leaving. So September 1st, I move in, or August 31st. And then September 3rd, I'm out. And you guys will see where I'm leaving for. But then after September 3rd, I come back in a couple of days. Then September 9th, I go to Vegas for Robinhood. So it's like the first 2 weeks of moving into this apartment, I'm barely going to be there. And so I think we'll get to really settle in towards the end of September. And then maybe in October, there's an international trip happening, potentially. So we're going to see how that one is playing out. That might also mess up the market close every day. And I mean, the market open, I think, will be able to happen if we do that international trip. It would be for about a week. Market close definitely wouldn't be able to happen. So we just got to see logistics on all that stuff. But at least by mid-September, we should get a lot of this stuff back to normal. How do the parents feel about it? My mom's been starting to have that, my son's leaving type of, we were at a family dinner last night, and she was, basically she was telling her friends, like I raised him for 28 years and now he's just leaving me. It's like, obviously she's playing with it. She wants me to move out as well. I mean, I wouldn't say she wants me to move out. She wants me to go out and be on my own. If I stayed home, I don't think she wouldn't be upset about it at all. But as a mother, you definitely feel that type of longing for your son. Oh wow, OpenAI just tweeted they're doing a live stream at 1 p.m. Okay, so you got an OpenAI live stream. I will not be streaming that, but looks like that's going to be happening today. And so we'll see what they end up saying. It's awful for moms, yeah, because me and my mom are close. We actually talk. We have a relationship with each other, and we both deeply, deeply respect and care about each other. And also, we're very creative, both of us. It's kind of ironic that I ended up in a creative career because my mom, you guys know their story. Most of you guys know. My mom is one of the most creative people I know, but she grew up in a very conservative household, and her parents didn't allow her to channel that creativity. So I ended up getting her creative genes, and I ended up going down the entrepreneurial creative route, which again, for most Indians in particular in this country, they don't do that because the stigma is doctor, lawyer, engineer. And like, I've seen a lot of my Indian friends that try to be creative and their parents shut that shit down real quick. And they're like, nope, you are not going that direction. My mom, because her parents shut that down, she ended up pivoting and didn't carry her trauma of not being able to be creative and allowed me to just kind of figure it out, which I will be grateful for the rest of my life. And so now that that creativity has manifested itself into stuff like this, it's really emotional for her, and it means a lot to me, you know. So, but I'll be going back and forth between, and I don't live that far away from my parents, so I will make sure to continue to visit them and all that stuff. But also, it's gonna be fun, dude. It's also gonna be fun. It's like the first time in 5 years actually living alone. So I lived alone in college, and that was really fun. And I took 5 years to figure it out. Chat says this is the world's longest That's the Show for every time. It's 30 minutes at the end of the show. I think I said it's time to go at 11:05. It's now 11:37. It's because you guys keep me yapping, but yeah, I'm excited, dude. I'm really excited to just be on my own and do my own thing. Like yesterday when I was, or not yesterday, 2 days ago when I was in the apartment for like 5 hours, I was just like in there. I was doing my own work. Took a couple meetings. I was just like walking back and forth. I did some vacuuming. Like I was like, this feels like just like, I've been waiting for just having my own space for a long time. And so, yeah, now we're finally there. All right, folks, that's it. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Means the world. We'll be back for the market close. Got a lot of companies putting up earnings today. And then tomorrow we will have Steve on to discuss Ethereum, Nvidia, all that good stuff. And we'll keep going from there. Saturday and Sunday, no streams. Monday, we'll have 2 streams. One Technical Tuesday on Monday instead. And then we'll have the official apartment stream on Monday. And we'll keep going from there. Is Trump actually live, bro? Is this guy legit live? Or are you guys just trolling again? Is he actually live? No, he's not actually. You guys are just absolutely trolling every single time. All right. Worth a try. All right, everybody. Thank you. I'll see you guys later in the market close. Bye, everybody.